Hello. It's another day, another stream in fascist America. There are many updates that I'd like to go over today, but also how we can be taking our power back as well. Because there's a lot. Oh, I guess normally I should start on this screen. Off to a great start. I guess I should do my intro. I forget to do this sometimes. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. My name is Aubri Devashrayee, and I would like to go over Operation Epstein distraction today. It's not just a distraction, we know this, but also, it's good for searchability when we talk about this, pervading the internet, the interweb with these search terms. Operation Epstein, failure, Epstein distraction, epic failure, World War III, all of these things. But also, we know that this war is at the behest of Israel, and that there are many conflicting interests happening. And this is a real shit show for the Epstein administration. We also see that Juniper's outside playing with a new toy. Can you hear that? It's like a little ball with a tail attached to it, like this gray ball. She caught me looking at her. Anyway, distracted by cuteness. So I want to give some updates on that because as someone who grew up in the heart of empire of the United States of America, I'm deeply ignorant of foreign affairs. Excuse me. And I'll admit that. I know this. I think we should all be aware of this if you have had a similar experience. Um, Contrary to popular belief, if you go to public school, often you will get more of an education on history even than what happens in private schools. Certainly more than what happens in homeschooling. Okay? The homeschooling epidemic, because it's really concerning for many reasons, is very present in Utah, where I'm located. And this just allows people to not educate their children. Like, there was someone that I knew in high school who just started public school in high school, which is like quite the socialization to be experiencing. And she felt very threatened by reading, which, many people do, but also, like, she had a very difficult time because I had an English class with her. And she felt very out of place. That's like, why why is it allowed to, like, she said that they did sewing most days and then like church lessons. And that's not necessarily like teaching you about foreign affairs or preparing you for what it's like to exist in the world. Well, Mormon world, I guess. Anyway, I'm rambling. What was I saying? um okay, so there are these updates that I want to go over with what's happening with this illegal unwarranted aggression with Iran. And we have some updates. James Tallarico won the Democratic primary. So he is the Democratic nominee candidate for senator in the upcoming midterms. You know, we should be very concerned about the midterms and if they will even happen. Because with the trajectory that we are on right now, it certainly looks like we will not, and that there will be these masked Gestapo agents that are around the polling sites. So, a lot of voter suppression and intimidation. We already see that there are so many gerrymandering, that's what it is, efforts happening already with these like districting wars that are happening throughout the country. And there are going to be even more recruits for ICE going through their non-training. So this is where we are at, and that these are the people that they're going to have around these polling sites. Kristi Noem in her hearings did not confirm if she would not have ICE agents around polling sites, which was very damning and concerning that we should all be paying attention to. And to be honest, the coverage of this across the internet, there is a lot of bipartisan support, if we're talking about like within this duopoly of legendary media, like the fascist state media known as Fox, but also the centrist Democratic legacy media, Democratic. But across the spectrum here, from what I'm seeing upon lurking on the internet, is that there are people who are very concerned about what's happening with this war and what is happening with this hearing with Kristi Noem, where people are seeing her be directly contradicted. But I mean, there are some people that we will never be able to change their minds because it's a cult, but people can be swayed more by popular opinion, because this is mostly what people care about, is that they want to feel like they have people around them that agree with them and that they fit in with these people. And this is why public pressure and peer pressure is very helpful in guiding people towards a moral compass if they are incapable of developing their own. So, anyway, also with all of this bullshit happening, I figure it's good to direct some of this anger. Damn. Oh. One moment. Okay. That it's good to direct some of this anger into action as well. Hello, Tan. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. So I'll be going over some of these updates in current events, but then also talk about resistance tactics for what's happening. And there is a video of Urvashi Vide that I wanted to show. We'll see if I have time for this. Hydrate. Any good beverage choice? I mean, I'm just tap water today, to be honest. Not fancy at all. But, you know, still the thing we all need, I guess. It really is wild just being like, I should probably, like, I guess I depend on this. My life depends on this, but I also forget to drink water. I think we all do. Hello! She brought in her toy. Wow. She wanted it to go farther. She's mad about that, I think. Are you gonna bring it? Okay. We'll see what she does. Just stopping abruptly. Okay. Anyway, how are you doing? This is Juniper. A bug. But I also call her Bug. I call her Tiny or Teeny. She's very sweet. Do you have any pets? Okay. So I like to start off with a funny video. So here is a video by And Mayhem Ensued. Whoops. A drag queen that I love. And she is recreating Erika Kirk's makeup look. And I'm very excited to see this. This wallpaper is cute. And the chandelier.
I hope you all appreciate my commitment.
Wait, let me. Okay. Oh no.
I hope you all appreciate my commitment. I did waterproof mascara. I hate waterproof mascara. Get ready.
Waterproof mascara is really hard to take off. It just like shreds your eyelashes. I'll be great by the time I get my food in me. Nice. What will you be getting? I've had quite a few, but not at the moment. I I've been wanting to I've been making a goal to cook more Indian food this year, and I'm failing miserably because I get very intimidated by so many dishes that, you know what, I just need to be better about learning. I just need to be more patient. Anyway, to our scheduled programming.
With me to recreate Erika Kirk's makeup look. Welcome back to Queer Eye for the MAGA guy, gal, and non-binary pal, the show where I, a liberal, reach across the
Thank
aisle
you.
and enact bipartisanship to help conservatives recreate their favorite politician and grieving widow's makeup looks. It's a crime not to prime. Erika Kirk has done a lot in her 37 years of life, from being a Miss Arizona, ties to Donald Trump, to being a housewife who was also involved with the Heritage Foundation, to being a widow, and now the CEO of Turning Point USA. We're gonna go in with a full coverage pan stick foundation all over our face. I've seen a lot of conservatives say that Erika Kirk is
I put a friend on alert for any incoming black cats at her workspace. Oh, I've always wanted a black cat. Juniper is a Russian gray. No, that's not what it's called. It's a Russian blue. 2 veggie burgers and a Talasai smoothie. That sounds lovely. incredible.
This generation's Jackie Kennedy when it comes to being a grieving widow, which a lot of people don't think is a fair comparison, but I do, because Jackie Kennedy also stood out on a stage for a fireworks display in a sequin pantsuit and then set up that, photo op opportunity for where her husband was assassinated so people could recreate the photo for a small fee. That's something Jackie Kennedy did, and a lot of people don't mention it because it never happened. Now I'm going to take a lighter full coverage pan stick
Just
and
making
go
up this
around
story.
my eyes to really make them pop. Take a black beauty blender because she's a widow. Blend, blend, blend. I actually really like when makeup has a band of light around the eyes, although it is very much a nighttime look and not a daytime grieving
This
widow
is why
look.
she always looks like a
But
villain.
still, I
But
do think it's attractive. It reminds me of Morticia Addams, played by Angelica Houston in the Addams Family movies, where she always had that band of...
except if Morticia Addams didn't have any taste or morality, which, like, I know they're supposed to be, like, evil technically or something, or just contrary. The Addams family, like, that in comparison, Erika is definitely
light
more
around
evil.
her eyes, making her look very mysterious. I don't think the lighter foundation is enough of a contrast, so I am going to go in with some of my NYX Jumbo Stick in white.
It's interesting that when these people are wearing crosses like this, they don't just completely erupt into flames, because we know this is what they're doing on their weekends, right? Right? We can all agree on this. We know that's what these people are doing.
Then I will blend that out. One thing I do think is fascinating to watch with Erika Kirk and how she has handled everything is that she needs to do performative grief for conservatives. But conservatives also have a very narrow view of what a woman can do and how a woman can perform. And a woman can't be ugly when she's performing grief, which is why she has to be in full glam. Because if she was looking like a normal person grieving, that would not be okay, and the conservatives would not register that as grief. They would register that as being lazy. Before we go any further in today's video, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor who's helping to keep the ring lights on and food in my belly. It's my little golden toilet books that I write and illustrate myself. I self-publish them on Amazon because it's the only place that will do it for a non-exorbitant price that I just can't afford. This one is the latest.
I don't love the Amazon about it all, but I do love the artistic and ingenuity and dedication to this.
Love You Even Though You're Not White, the Usha and JD Vance story.
Picture.
Then we have Trump and his big, beautiful bulldozer. Trump I Rump and the Epstein Files. I Am a Worm in RFK's brain.
Driving his brain. That picture is so good. These illustrations are incredible. Very talented. Holy shit. I love this so much.
I'm a worm in RFK's brain. Republicans have two daddies. Becoming Her, the Melania Trump story. Lil Donnie's Taco Tuesday. It's Not That Easy being Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the daddies are fighting Alien versus Predator. All about Elon Musk and Donald Trump's fallout. Little Golden Toilet books are satire parody books, but they're also based in factual evidence. While these are not books for children or snowflakes, they are an excellent way of keeping up to date on what is happening in our political world.
Look at her makeup in this. Look at So, how she even got down that like Morticia Adams commentary she applied here. Incredible. Also, I loved the read with like her hair growing in of her part. This is supposed to be Erika Kirk right here. This drag queen is wrote this book and also illustrated this book. The fact that JD Vance, oh my god, look at the eyes too. Like, these people want to be Daisy so bad. Like, Daisy people with their makeup and, like, their body types. But also, like, what? Like, this is what they do. Just appropriation because they don't have any sort of culture. And then they do it so dirty as well.
World without having to deal with the stress of watching the news. So if you want to support me and my channel, be sure and check out the little golden toilet books available
Ghislaine and
on
Jeffrey.
Amazon.
Oh my god.
Bland, bland, bland. Now we're going to do something that a lot of beginner drag queens were doing back in 2016, which is baking our under eyes with highlighter. Eye makeup, when you're doing your eye makeup, always start on your non-dominant side. If you're right-handed, start on your left eye. If you're left-handed, start on your right eye. It makes them so much easier to match. I'm going to start off with a pink NYX jumbo stick. There is a lot you can criticize Erika Kirk for, but one thing
Oh, like her orange blush. Why do why these conservative white people are obsessed with orange blush? And most of the time they have like pink, red, peach undertones to their skin and it just makes them look like mannequins because it doesn't look natural at all.
for, but one thing I will say is she does know how to apply makeup, even though it does sort of lean towards drag queen the majority of the time. But the interesting thing about Erika Kirk's makeup is it is so glam that it's actually much faster to apply than somebody like Megyn Kelly, who is in very glam makeup, but it's meant to be a day look. A lot of people on the internet have said Erika Kirk was a honeypot sent to marry Charlie Kirk to control him. Now, I'm not saying anything on that topic, but what I will say is
I have not heard this, but also that makes sense.
why does she consistently lie now about never dating anyone before Charlie Kirk when she was living in New York, when she was on the record even so much as a year and a half ago as saying she dated a lot of men before Charlie when she was living in New York? I'm going to take the white jumbo stick and carve out our under eyebrows.
Drag her.
It's not a bad eye makeup look, but I could do without the Avril Lavigne eyeliner. This is not a JD Vance makeup look. Do not do a wing. Now, I am not somebody who thinks there is one way to grieve. And if you're not crying, that doesn't mean you're not grieving. But if you are caught using a tear stick to look like you are crying, you are performatively grieving. Contour. Start at the center of your ear.
Was she actually caught using a tear stick? Of course she was. Good
now,
lord.
I'm also not going to say Erika Kirk shouldn't be girl bossing and running Turning Point USA as the CEO, but Charlie would have said that if it was anyone else. Contour all around the hair.
What else did he say? Submit to your husband. Submit to your... He said that to Taylor Swift, which is kind of funny. Submit to your husband, Taylor, is what he said. And he also was like, yeah, these conservative men who don't think like women should be able to work or be in society, that they have to stay home, that it's like there's a reason why she is looking more liberated, and that's because she is. Because like it doesn't mean that she was experiencing like enormous oppression beforehand, because like but she was still experiencing a lot of the oppression that comes with strict gender roles. Of course, she is also like benefiting from these concepts of like whiteness in this white supremacist world that we live in, that she and her husband were actively advocating for. But she also did experience the downside of being married to Charlie. And so, like, who is deeply sexist. So she is a little bit liberated, and we do need to keep reading her. We need to keep making fun of her as well as Charlie Kirk, because like people who are so deeply eugenicist and talking about the great replacement theory, uh talking about black people in an extremely racist way in association with crime, and advocating for laws that don't have any sort of exceptions for abortion, like all of these things that they have caused enormous harm, how they talk about queer people, how they've talked about trans people. So we need to keep making fun of them.
Line. Erika Kirk has a very small nose and some of the least blended nose contour I have seen since Ariana Grande on press tour for the Wicked movies. And it's like, girl, your nose is tiny. We can buff it in some. Oh. Maybe her nose isn't tiny. A Barbie pink blush right above
Honestly,
our contour
Bride of
and
Chucky.
under our eye whiteness.
What did Candace Owens had something recently that was like the Bride of Charlie trying to be like the Bride of Chucky.
Between your eyebrows.
I love the infighting.
And under the nose. We're going to apply our bronzer with a powder puff. You might be thinking, that's going to be way too much bronzer. While there is a real cognitive dissonance between Erika Kirk's actions and the things that she preaches other women do, I want to say that's way less startling to me than the people who support Erika Kirk and support the things she says. That one I don't understand, because Erika Kirk's is kind of self-preservation. But I also believe you should be firmly willing to live and die by your convictions that you expect others to live and die by.
Yeah, well, we know that they're grifters, right? Like, we know that they're grifters.
Much like the Duggar girl who had an abortion while saying women shouldn't have the rights to abortions, but hers was okay because it was an unviable pregnancy, but other women she expects to carry their unviable pregnancy and God will save them.
Mm-hmm.
I have that same feeling for Erika Kirk.
Yeah.
Why isn't God doing it? Why do you have to do it? You tell other women to keep their mouths shut and let God's will be done through men. Why are you being a CEO of a company? That seems sketchy.
Yeah, the fact that there are all of these conservative women now being surprised that they're being pushed out of political life, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, that they're talking about, oh, the sexism in the Republican Party. Like, they sound like feminists now, which is really crazy, because they are not feminists at all. And in this particular instance, they are concerned about what it means to be a female in a space like this, because they are around these white Christian nationalists who think that women should not be working, that they need to be in the kitchen and only raising children, and that they should not be in positions of power. So, of course, they're treated poorly. This is why, like, when some people are oppressed and treated poorly, we should take the stance that we all are. So it's so interesting. Like, I'm very interested in seeing how this develops with Caroline Leavitt being the press secretary for the White House, and she's pregnant, of like what kind of discrimination she'll probably experience if they'll let her back after she has a baby. They might make exceptions for her, but like I somehow doubt it. So we'll see.
Say a woman's place is in the home and single mothers are bad, while being a single mother whose place isn't in the home. You were worth millions of dollars. You didn't have to do any of this. And then you grifted more money. Yes, grifted, because if you're selling merch in a star-spangled display of grief, that's grifting.
A star-spangled
now, I'm
display
not
of grief
Kirk looks like the Tiffany doll
amazing.
From the Chucky franchise. But what I will say is when I illustrated her for the J.D. Vance book, I had to change her face 4 times because it just kept looking too much like Tiffany. Lip time for that perfectly pouty, in my
Tiffany Trump
opinion, tasteful lip filler look. We're just going to
is what I'm
gently
guessing.
overdraw our lips with a darker lip liner than our lip color is going to be. Thick coats of mascara on our top and bottom lashes. I hope you all appreciate my commitment. I did waterproof mascara. I hate waterproof mascara. Now, I am not saying conservatives are racist or that people who support Erika Kirk are full of double standards, but what I will say is if a black woman was to wear false eyelashes at the size of Erika Kirk's false eyelashes, they definitely would be making comments. Drawing a T for Trump on our
Exactly.
forehead in highlighter. Down the nose, a little more highlighter on the tops of our cheeks, leading up into our eye. And of course, white powder under the nose. I don't know why conservatives do this. It just makes you look sweaty. Shoot. A lawyer always told me to say this. In my opinion, because of the sheer thickness of Erika Kirk's makeup, she has to wear an ungodly amount of setting powder over her entire face to really lock it in, which is why she is both so shiny and so matte all of the time. I will be right back.
Shiny and matte. Sparkle. That's pretty
This is our
good.
final result. Let me know what you think of this makeup look in the comments, and be sure and tell me what other conservative politicians' makeup looks you would like to see me recreate. All right, my strange little onions, I love you. Have a hug, a cookie, and a juice box. Mwah.
All right. Getting into the news. So, this is a video by Democracy Now! Utter disaster for all involved. Is Trump's war on Iran repeating Bush's forever war in Iraq? Yes, and then some, because this is different when it comes to the significance of murdering, now martyring, the leader, and how this means that people have much more religious fervor in resistance. That it is not just an attack on sovereignty and the safety of a nation state, but also that it is representative of a significant portion of a religion that means that there is more strength and unity through other nation states as well because of the people who are living there. So let's talk about this. This is an illegal war of aggression that is completely unwarranted, that we know is covering up for the Epstein files and is at the behest of Israel. That all of this is to create chaos and have all of these billionaires make money from the industrial war complex. Many people think that this is because of the midterms that are coming up, that if they're able to actually happen and be free and fair, that there is a concern that having a less conservative base there, having a less conservative representation there, that there won't be as many opportunities to be able to grift and exploit the American people further. So we have these war pigs who are in Congress that are cheering this on because they are benefiting, their donors are benefiting, and this is also done by Israel very intentionally pushing the US, from what it sounds like. This is what Marco Rubio was saying, and they can't undo that. Where this is to also completely disrupt the national, like, structural order of Iran. And this is not, from what it seems like, the intention of what Trump wanted, that he's upset that now this is taking longer from what we're hearing behind the scenes. And now we are seeing that there is total chaos happening and that Netanyahu is accomplishing what he is desiring, that there will be a complete, just like falling apart of the nation state of Iran rather than having a regime change, like is what, from what it seems like Trump was intending or thought he was doing or was told about it or something. Because now this is going to be lasting a lot longer.
Now, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's also escalating its bombardment of Lebanon, where officials said today at least another 11 people were killed in an Israeli strike on a hotel in a Beirut suburb and a residential complex in eastern Lebanon. Israel also announced a wave of attacks across southern Lebanon. Lebanese authorities told Al Jazeera an estimated 65,000 people have been displaced in Lebanon due to Israel's attacks. This comes as Iran continues to launch retaliatory strikes at U.S. and Israeli targets across the region, including the U.S. Embassy and CIA station in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the U.S. consulate grounds in Dubai, and the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. Turkey said today a ballistic missile fired from Iran had entered its airspace but was destroyed by NATO defense systems. It's unclear whether the missile was targeting Turkey. In the UAE, debris from a drone intercepted by defense forces sparked a fire at an oil terminal. Meanwhile, Qatari authorities reportedly arrested 10 suspected members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, including several accused of being assigned to spy on vital and military facilities in Qatar. That's according to Al Jazeera. For more, we go to Doha, where we're joined by Marwan Bashara, Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, as we talk about this widening escalation. Can you respond, Marwan Bashara, to what has taken place over this last 5 days?
Well, clearly, since the assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, it seems that Iran plans for the war were put on an autopilot of sort. This is not a justification. This is simply a potential explanation as to why Tehran is lashing out the way it is, with many of its leaders and commentators that I've heard the past 5 days are incapable of explaining what exactly is Iran doing, because the claim is that they are attacking American bases and American installations. But in fact, Iranian rockets and missiles and drones have hit various economic and residential installations in various parts of the Gulf. Of course, there's also been attacks on Erbil in northern Iraq, on Jordan, and other places. So the only plausible explanation for now is either there's been a decision been made that if Iran is going to fall, everyone else is going to fall, or there's a predetermined decision that says there has to be a cost to be paid for American interests, for the West and the various stakeholders in energy and economy and so on and so forth, so that the higher the price, the quicker there will be pressure on the United States to end the war.
Talk about this latest news in Turkey. Talk about how an attack on a NATO member could pull more countries into the fighting, and Turkey's position on the U.S.-Israeli strike on Iran.
You know, for the time being, what is quite astounding is the decision by, at least here, the Gulf countries not to respond, not to join the American-Israeli onslaught against Iran. They've been taking, of course, a lot of defensive measures, and I would expect Turkey to do the same. None of them want to join an Israeli war of choice, a hegemonic war on the part of the United States, Israel against Iran, not only because most of them don't think it was right and they stood against it, they condemned it, but also because this will even widen further the regionalization of the war, as we've seen it the past 5 days, but basically put on steroid. So the fact that this could actually go out of control, and the fact that there are those who are interested in this regionalization, notably the Israeli government, Netanyahu and others who actually foresaw this happening and wanted this to happen. They wanted the chaos within Iran. They wanted the chaos within the region, because they're the only ones capable of affecting, influencing American decision making for the time being. And they think the worse it gets out there for Turkey, for the Gulf region, for Iran, and so on and so forth, the better it is for Israel.
I want to go to the Connecticut Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal. They were just briefed yesterday in the Senate.
I just want to say I am more fearful than ever after this briefing that we may be putting boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground, Marwan Bashar. If you can comment on this, and NBC reporting the U.S. torpedoing of an Iranian naval ship in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Sri Lanka. It's the first time a submarine has sunk a ship since World War II.
Yeah, it's interesting to read various assessments of this sort of thing happening in the likes of The Economist, right? The British Economist or the Wall Street Journal, where
it's like Iran has been preparing for this, and for good reason, because there are so many threats that are happening over the years that they have intentionally built their defense system so that if their leader is eliminated, that they have other options, that they have a much larger military that is more sprawling, and they have more resources available. Where, like, this is different than the Iraq War. And this is what people were warning about when it comes to Trump. But, this didn't have to happen, is what is so frustrating. That, like, Congress needs to act now, but also we need a national strike. We need a world strike as well. So I have these links in my profile if you are interested in joining.
The fallacy, the failure of this administration in copying not one page, not 2 pages, not a chapter, but the entire playbook of the Bush administration. I mean, they've repeated every single false pretext that the Bush administration carried or diffused in order to justify the war against Iraq in 2003. We've known what a disaster that war was, not only for Iraq, not only for the hundreds of thousands who died in that war, but for the thousands of Americans who died and for the trillions of dollars that were spent in the first 10 years of the war. So we see the Trump administration that called that the stupid war and called that the forever war, now repeating exactly the same, walking in the footsteps of the Bush administration, except this country, Iran, is 4 or 5 times the size of Iran. The Iranian regime is far more coalesced and far more united than the Iraqi regime was. And clearly this threatens to be a far worse war in its implication for American long-term security and for the stability in the region than the Iraq war. And yet, here we have this American president, Israeli prime minister, who promised to become historical figures, tragic historical figures of sort, who have learned nothing from the lessons of history. And this is just fresh in the mind, right? Only 20 plus years ago when the United States got stuck. But it wasn't just Iraq. I mean, after launching a 20-year war in Afghanistan for regime change, after launching a war for regime change in Libya, what happened in Iraq, Libya, and Afghanistan the past 20 years? They all turned into costly fiascos. And yet here we have another administration. It's like the American government, as if Washington is addicted to, international violence, to wars, to assassinations, to launching those hegemonic wars that they could not end, that they always tend to end in fiascos. And you know what, Amy, not just the past 20 years. I mean, the Korean War, for God's sake, haven't even ended. What, 70 years later? The Vietnam War, what happened with that, right? So America gets involved in all these wars in the Gulf, in Southeast Asia and elsewhere. None of them are successful. They all tend to failure since Second World War. And yet, the capacity of American governments to be repeating the same mistakes again and again, launching hegemonic wars, forever wars that fail, that are costly, that cost America its reputation, that cost its credibility, its soldiers, and its tax dollars. And here we are again.
Marwan, I wanted to ask you about the role of Saudi Arabia. The Washington Post reporting Trump launched Saturday's attack on Iran, quote, after a weeks-long lobbying effort by an unusual pair of U.S. allies in the Middle East, Israel and Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has publicly supported a diplomatic solution, also said Saudi airspace and territory can't be used for an attack on Iran. However, according to the Post, made multiple private phone calls to Trump over the past month advocating a U.S. attack on Iran. What does Saudi Arabia have to gain from this?
Well, the thing is, right, is that we've heard exactly the opposite scenario being expressed by Saudi commentators on Al Jazeera, amongst others, saying that the Crown Prince sent his defense minister, his brother, to Iran, who met personally with the supreme leader, the late supreme leader, to tell them that Saudi Arabia has zero interest in a confrontation with Iran, and it agrees with Iran on the question of Israel. So go figure. But there's one thing for sure, back to your question, is that Saudi Arabia has no interest in such a confrontation, such an Israeli-American war against Iran. There's one thing we've learned in this region, is that when the type of, Iran and the United States, or the Soviet Union and the United States, or whoever, it's along that Swahili proverb, right? When the elephants fight, the grass gets crushed. When elephants play, the grass gets crushed. So whether there is a rapprochement between Iran and the United States, or whether there's a war between Iran and the United States, the neighbors tend to pay the price. And there is no interest for any of the neighbors for this kind of war to be launched this way, on false pretext, on a total hegemony, not planned well, clearly with no end in sight, and with no real objectives, right? The way this is happening and the way this is being rolled out, this promises to be an utter disaster for all involved, including Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, and many of the neighboring Arab states.
Marwan Bashar, I want to thank you for being with us. Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, speaking to us from Doha, Qatar. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.
Thanks, Amy Goodman. Okay, so continuing with updates. I don't know if you can hear her purring. Okay. Here's this 3 F-15s shot down in friendly fire incident in Kuwait. This is not getting as much coverage as what it should be, so I wanted to watch this by Hassan.
Funny thing that I will cover, of course, which is that seemingly whenever there is an American military action anywhere around the world, some assets are going to accidentally get shot down by other air defenses. And of course, this is what I'm talking about is Kuwait. Apparently, Kuwait shot down 3 U.S. F-15s. Incredible work by the American defenses. Glorious. This literally happened with Biden in Yemen, and it happened with Trump in Yemen as well. I need you to understand, if there is any American any American naval movement happening anywhere, there are gonna be some, 10, 20, 30, $100 million equipment failing and falling and exploding and sometimes falling off the ships, the aircraft carriers, and in evasive maneuvering. It's incredible. We love melting tax dollars on fire. We love lighting tax dollars on fire. It's glorious. It's just, you might as well watch a school explode in the air at that point. John McCain's ghost is haunting our forces. Yeah. John McCain dropped 6 planes. 6 planes. And the only reason why he was incapacitated was because he was taken as a prisoner of war. Do you understand? They would have put his ass back on a plane even after the last incident if he hadn't been incapacitated by being taken as a prisoner of war by the Viet Cong. Understand, he was the Viet Cong's strongest soldier. That's why I always had tremendous respect for John McCain, the anti-imperialist goat. A lot of you only talk about how you want to offer critical support to the People's Liberation, critical support to the North Vietnamese, but John McCain lived it. He lived it every day of his life. 6 aerial assets he dropped. 6 of them. How many American aircrafts have you destroyed? A lot of you LARP. A lot of you LARP as though you're like, oh, dude, I think it's, I would love to serve. I would love to serve alongside these people. These people are doing this honorable, brave, anti-imperialist action. America. John McCain lived it. Okay.
Recovered and are in stable condition.
He lived
CNN geolocated video that appears to be an F-15 falling from the sky, the pilot parachuting out. There's also video that appears to show a pilot safe on the ground after ejecting. Now, the aircraft were F-15 Strike Eagle fighter jets. CENTCOM says Kuwaiti air defenses mistakenly shot them down during active combat that included attacks from Iranian aircraft, ballistic missiles, and drones. The cause of the incident under investigation.
Look, it's clear that CENTCOM are saying here this was an active combat area. Likely, it seems, if you interpret what they said, that Kuwaiti air defenses were engaging drones, missiles, other things at the time, and mistook these F-15s as legitimate targets too. That is essentially the consequence of the war that the United States is in here. President Trump warned yesterday that there could potentially be more.
I f***ing love this. I'm sorry. It's so funny. It's so funny. I was just like, wah, wah. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, baby.
شوف طلعت عندنا هني يا يبا شوف طلعت عندنا والله يا ساتر.
Oh, you can always count on these $30 million bad boys, $100 million bad boys, however expensive it is to just Operation, I'll just stay up and keep drinking. That way I won't be hungover at work.
Bruh.
Oh, man. What, is 80 million a pop? Fantastic.
We want to talk about how this happened, and here to do that is
Jesus. This is costing so much money. The fact that we just always have money for war and violence, but never for social programs, that there are so many things being defunded right now, that people are being laid off, like at all of these governmental levels because of the trickle-down effect from these Doge cuts, and how now there's even more gutting with, like, in addition to the Doge cuts, with the big beautiful bill that passed that is just making it so that our infrastructure is completely gutted. That we always have money for war and violence and the industrial war complex, the for-profit prison complex, and not for housing and food and childcare, healthcare.
Retired Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. Thank you so much for being here, because we're going to talk not just about that plane, but also the sort of pros and cons of doing an air campaign with the goal of regime change, which is not something.
Oh, that's the second part of this. every aspect of Operation Epic Fail, Operation Epic Fortnite Chungus, Operation Epstein's Fury is just busted, okay? Every part of this operation is so busted because the goals are wrong. The methods are impossible to achieve the stated goals for, right? Like the goals in and of itself are idiotic. And the methods that we are willing to commit to are not going to help us achieve those goals at all. It's incredibly violent. It's incredibly brutal. It's incredibly deadly. And on top of that, in the process of Operation Epic Fortnite Chungus, billions, and I mean billions of dollars of American assets in the region have been destroyed. And as a consequence of that destruction, in the hands of Iranian drone strikes, Iranian munitions, Iranian ballistic missiles, we have seen once again that America literally either A, does not care about any of its Gulf regional allies, or is perhaps worse, incapable of defending their own bases. Operation Epic Fail has been insane as far as like doing damage to American might and American military competence. You could not write a funnier story than this. Operation Fortnite Chungus is conducted by actual drunk assholes, drunk rapists who are just drunk at the wheel.
I'm gonna step out for a sec, but I'm gonna keep playing this. I'll be right back.
Like very clearly drunk driving this situation, drunk driving the car. Haas MVP? What did he do? Oh, he's putting falling planes on the screen. Okay. Okay, they don't show the funnier parts about this. Here, watch. Video showing locals approaching one of the F-15 pilots who ejected over Kuwait.
Really? You need something to help you? No problem, you're safe. You're safe, you're safe. Everything good? No problem. Thank you for helping us. Everything perfect?
Oh no, bro. They're gonna hit the fucking female pilot. Oh no. Oh, they're gonna say DEI, except the other two pilots were male, but it doesn't matter. Dude, no, do not take that helmet off. Just make your voice more coarse. Be like, yeah, I'm a white man. Oh no, we got a hashtag girl boss, dude. Oh no. Absolutely necessary to look at this. Oh yeah, this was really funny. Downed American pilot while in the shape of a swastika surrendering to a man with a stick. Come on, dude. Zero subtext, only text. It's 3 days into the Iran war. Yeah, for the record, for people who might think like, oh, it's because the Kuwaitis hate these guys. No, the Kuwaitis love these guys, okay? I need you to understand something. They probably thought he was an Iranian pilot at first, and then they realized that he was an American pilot, and then they put him in the back of a car so that they could take him to a hospital.
Police? Yes, 1 minute. 1 minute. لا لا شبه الدبة 1 minute 1 minute 1 minute Police? Yes, 1 minute.
Brother, what is happening? Bro, we are not a serious country, man. They put him in the back of the car like a dog. Oh my God, dude. Oh, that's so funny. That's awesome. Kuwaitis are providing cover. Only system they have that can hit F-16s are Patriot batteries, which have lots of fail-safes due to past FF incidents. It was Iranian batteries. US is just lying. Yeah, there is a suspicion on whether or not this was friendly fire. And I guess America would rather say it's friendly fire than say that it was Iranians that struck the Iranians that actually struck the F-15s. Having said that, I don't know. Maybe it is. It has happened before. So, do you see that? That's my truck video from an American soldier.
That's my fucking truck.
I'm inclined to believe that it's a friendly fire, because what Iranian anti-aircraft system is striking Kuwaiti airspace, bro? Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, because it literally happens. It happens right on top of the Kuwaiti airspace. Like, that's This is cognitive information warfare, e.g. lie the out of everything and claim otherwise. This is a new NATO doctrine. Iran has S-300s within range of Kuwait. I don't know. Why are you laughing it up all giddy about serious matters? Okay, but none of this is funny. What am I supposed to do, man? Kill myself? What do you want me to say? Look at our incompetent ass multi-trillion-dollar military, brother. What do you want? The best possible outcome here for the American military to save face is that they struck their own planes. The worst possible outcome is that Iranian S-300s, Russian S-300s purchased by Iran, were able to literally laser 3 American F-15 fighter jets off of Kuwaiti airspace. And none of this needs to happen at all. So what do you want me to do? Not laugh about the situation? Yeah, it's our goddamn tax dollars being lit on fire. That's a school. You know what I mean? That's healthcare. But of course I'm going to laugh. At least they didn't get to go murder a bunch of school children, you know what I mean, in a bombing campaign. So I'm going to laugh. I'm going to laugh a little bit. Yes, it's funny. It's objectively funny that an F-15 pilot wasn't able to go and, like, I don't know, laser some school. Before people go, F-15s don't actually do strike packages.
I'm back. Juniper's staying today. We're honored with her presence.
Schools or whatever it's an aerial combat. It's an aerial combat plane. Whatever. The F-15 friendly fire claim is either a lie or a U.S. command failure, but something is off, says Adam Cochran. After talking to experienced military sources, here's how we know the reporting is covered. Kuwait uses 3 types of air defense systems: Patriot, Improved Hawk, and SHORAD. A SHORAD type air defense would not reliably take down an F-15. An Improved Hawk could hit an F-15, but because a Hawk requires constant radar illumination, the pilot would be alerted to the lock by radar detection, could deploy a chaff, activate ECM, take maneuvers against it. So a Hawk striking 3 planes is deeply unlikely. The Patriot system can reliably strike targets like an F-15, and so we know it's likely that this was the system used. But Patriot systems rely on multiple ID types to engage a target. Radar track behavior rules. It shoots at things that act like a missile. IFF signature, broadcast automatic signature between fighter craft and ground systems. I mean, look, I don't know what the what the point of failure is here, but it's the American military, so I feel like there's numerous points of failure that you could point to. How is it not funny? It's the military industrial complex being incompetent. Nobody got hurt. It's literally hilarious. Exactly. I will say a couple things that have proven to be true here. Okay, a couple things that have proven to be true here once again. Maybe a lot of you are too young to remember the numerous points of failure that took place in the global war on terror when they first went in. When you go into an active war, no matter how much you've done combat simulations, no matter how much you've trained your troops, there are going to be very real problems when you get into a real shooting battle. Okay, it's always a cluster. I mean, the one example I always use is the Humvees. They brought all these Humvees into Iraq and Afghanistan, and literally they had no coverage, no protection underneath the Humvees. So basically all of those Humvees turned into dick explosion machines because they would just drive around and some dude who mixed a concoction and put it into a Teflon pan, like a boiling pot with a bunch of marbles, would put together a roadside bomb, and that shit would explode right underneath the Humvee, and every single troop's dick would explode in the process. Okay? Literally. How do you not factor in armor underneath the goddamn Humvee? It's shit like that. It happens all the time. No matter how much you think you've factored everything into the equation, you have the most sophisticated equipment, you have the best machinery, there are always going to be issues. There are obviously, again, numerous points of failure and many problems that are taking place with this round of epic Fortnite chungus that we haphazardly put together as we are, lasering Iranian schools, a volleyball team, and an 86-year-old man and his whole family in his residence that we seemingly have presented as this unique espionage victory. Oh my God, the American and Israeli clandestine operators are so good. They've deeply penetrated Iran. It's bro, he was at his house. That's really, this is the pivotal achievement of the CIA. He was at his house. It's mind-boggling that they're trying to sell this as as an incredible feat. There's a lot of, it's costly, it's bloody, it's completely it's it just shouldn't happen at all. I mean, it's completely ridiculous, and we're doing it anyway because that's just the way it goes. Having said that, as far as these points of failure, I mean, these are at this point you would assume that it would be expected that these sorts of things are going to happen, but seemingly it happens all the time with regular frequency. It literally happened with Ansar Allah under the Biden leadership when the Biden administration was bombing Sanaa, bombing Yemen. They had these issues. They lost, I think, 2 aircraft, right? And then Trump lost another one as well. So fantastic stuff overall.
Well, there's probably at least 30 or so F-15s that are stationed there in Kuwait.
Well, now it's 27.
You have to remember that it was an incredibly complex operation involving the Lincoln Carrier Battle Group, the Ford Carrier Battle Group out in the Mediterranean, all the bases that we have in the Middle East. Without a doubt, there was probably Tomahawk missiles launched from submarines, in fact. So it was an incredibly complex operation. So the fact that we'd have some kind of collision or some kind of an incident, is not that, it's not that remarkable.
Nobody's nerfect. Bro, that's awesome. That's awesome. Come on. I mean, what? Yeah, we shot 3 $80 million pieces of sophisticated equipment out of the sky with $4 million missiles in the same, at the same damn time. It's normal. It happens all the time.
Those aircraft were F-15 Strike Eagle fighter jets. The cause of the incident, of course, continues to be looked at, but those jets are just some of the assets that the U.S. is deploying in the air as this war expands. The military is also using remotely piloted MQ-9 Reaper drones. They carry Hellfire missiles and guided bombs. They are also using B-2 stealth bombers, valued at just...
Isn't it wonderful to see why you don't have healthcare on TV every day? I love when mainstream news turns into like QVC for the American military industrial complex. They're like, look at the might of our weapons. They're so sick.
QVC. Damn. Yeah. Okay. Moving along. Here is a video by Zateo that I was wanting to watch. Epstein is Trump's Achilles heel. Katie Fang tells Mady.
The 2-hour sundowning rambling that you heard for Donald Trump, you didn't hear the word Epstein once.
You're a lawyer. How, I'm trying to find the technical term, freaky is this Department of Justice?
It's the members of Congress problem, right? They're the ones that are failing to not use their power in the way it's supposed to be.
The Supreme Court can issue as many rules as they want. Who's going to enforce it if you have a president who says, no thanks?
Republicans, I think they're too racist to put a Hispanic in the office, no matter how white Marco tries to pretend to be. My concern is Democrats have the dog finally catching the car moment in November.
There's no such thing as a third.
Yeah, that is very true about
I think you're going to see a legitimate let them eat cake Marie Antoinette moment.
Many people thought that the United States had guardrails to protect it from a president like Donald Trump. Many people were wrong. Since Trump began his second term, he has shown time and time again how, from his perspective, laws are mere suggestions, lawmakers are pawns, and he is above both. Here to explain just how true or untrue that is attorney, legal analyst, former MSNBC anchor, now YouTube star Katie Fang, who now hosts Katie Fang News on YouTube. As a lawyer, Katie has trialed both civil and criminal cases, and we're going to take some of that experience and use it here on set. How are you? Long time no see.
I love this reunion.
This is a great reunion.
We
love the former cable,
overdue.
independent journalism, freedom space. How are you feeling? Let's start there. How are you feeling to be free in an era of Trump and assaults on the media, that you are on YouTube building your own audience, saying your own thing?
It's absolutely necessary. The idea of being, it's Katie Unleashed, the idea of not having a producer whispering in my ear, either hurry up and wrap because we're live, because you can't get into the meat of anything, or having somebody say, why do you call him convicted felon every time you say his name?
Because he is.
Yeah, like, I'm not quite sure why not. But all kidding aside, I have been saying part of the reason why we do what we do in independent journalism is you have to meet the urgency of the moment with the urgency of the message. And I don't think people want to hear the platitudes. I don't think people want to sit there and hear it be filtered or tempered in any way. I think they either want you to match their energy, their anger, their frustration, their fear, because if not, then where's that relatability? Like, I don't think it exists. And so I'm grateful that the universe said, we're going to dick you over, but then we're going to make sure you're going to be okay.
I think I'm in the same boat. I think I feel the same way.
You were like the frontiersman. You were like the pioneer.
And since then, we've had Jim Acosta and Joy Reid and your good self and others. I think. Look, you've noticed what we've noticed, which is the audience wants authenticity. The audience wants someone to legitimately channel their legitimate rage at what is going on.
They don't want performative rage.
And they don't want to be patronized
by
people telling them that Donald Trump somehow isn't a convicted felon or should be called a fascist or a liar. I mean, let's just take the State of the Union. Tuesday night, Donald Trump gave the longest State of the Union in American history, a snooze fest, but also, as my colleague Swin Soup sang, called a Klan rally in Congress.
Yes, absolutely.
Some racist shit
a little
about
January 6th, 2021.
It was a Klan.
He did the election denialism. He attacked Somalis. He talked about the importing of foreign cultures.
His greatest hits, apparently.
His greatest hits. What did you make of it? I felt he was a little low energy.
Yes, I expected to be a little bit more unhinged. And in full disclosure, I watched it after it happened.
Yes,
I did not watch it in real time
because we did an alternative rally.
We had our counter programming right across the street on the National Mall. So I did not have to suffer through it in real time, but I will admit that I did watch it thereafter. I also watched his prior 3 State of the Union addresses in preparation for said State of the Union address last night. Look, I'm going to continuously borrow from our former House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, when she ripped up her copy of his State of the Union address. She said it's a manifesto of mistruths.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's all it's ever going to be. But it was very campaign rally-esque. I actually don't take as much umbrage with Trump anymore because he's so freaking predictable. I take umbrage with all of the enablers.
Yes, agreed.
The furious jumping to your feet to
Corey Neal saying, sign my tie.
Exactly.
See that? Just do it
initially. Why didn't he just open his chest?
It's so embarrassing. Being a fascist is so fucking embarrassing. To be like, oh yes, we'll do whatever you say. Like these people who have no moral courage, who are just completely bought and sold by their donors and corporate interests, and how they have unending loyalty to this person who doesn't give a shit about them. And it just is deeply embarrassing and really tacky, and we need to call it for what it is.
And he asked him to sign.
No, and I felt like
grown man.
I felt like Mike Johnson, like you wanted to wipe the drool out of the corner of his mouth, like that type. And JD Vance, he deigned to return from his family trip to Italy. He felt like it was important to be there for that. God forbid we interrupt.
It was a great moment
grift.
when Trump praised Marco Rubio and JD Vance had to stand and sit through that.
Marco, which job did Trump praise Marco for? Because Marco has enough jobs to sustain the American economy.
Do you buy that the next Republican presidential candidate will be either JD Vance or Marco Rubio?
No. I don't think Republicans, I think they're too racist to put a Hispanic in the office, no matter how white Marco tries to pretend to be. And JD Vance's very incestuous relationship with the tech bros and stuff, they can only buy elections so far. And I think we've seen when you actually insert the Elon Musk and other into this environment,
JD Vance just has no likability.
So you got Trump. I mean, my worry
no
is
charisma.
He
has
no. Well, there won't be an
Well,
election in 2028.
I mean, that's no redeeming
That's
qualities.
still the very credible real thing he keeps bringing up.
He brought up voter fraud last night.
Well, he also said this should be my 3rd term. The man keeps constantly talking in terms of 3rd term. There's no such thing as a 3rd term.
He did the Fulton County raid on the search warrant executed down there. And
it always worries me when people say, is he going to have a 3rd term? There's no such thing as a 3rd term. It will be a forever term. There's no way he does a 3rd term.
It's very Putin.
But there's no scenario he does a 4 extra unconstitutional years and says, okay, I'm done. If he doesn't go in 28, he's not going ever. Right? That's the simple truth of the matter.
Oh, I think if he doesn't go in 28, I don't think you're going to see judicial intervention. I think some people will go that route, which is still credible and I support because I'm very much rules and norms and institutions girl. But I also think you're going to see a legitimate let them eat cake, Marie Antoinette moment. I'm not kidding
So on
you.
that note then, good, because I want to talk to you about the Supreme Court's big tariffs decision last week where they shut down.
Kudos to them.
They did 6-3.
And they rolled into that State of the Union yesterday.
Some of them did, yes.
And John Roberts looked horrified, but
did.
yes, he was there.
John Roberts, Chief Justice, he voted against, and obviously the 2 Trump appointees, 2 of the 3, Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett.
Yes.
So my question then is, Scott Jennings, who I refer to as the most annoying man on television, he said the other night with the typical
He
smirk
is the
on his
most
face
annoying
that,
man on television.
This ruling proves that the court is independent. Democrats keep calling the Supreme Court Trump's lapdog, but look, they ruled against him. What's your argument in response to people who say this proves that they're independent? Liking this video? Then don't just watch. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And tap the bell so you never miss a video or live show. But if you want early access to exclusive content, then you have to head to Zateo.com and subscribe now. You'll be supporting fearless, independent journalism.
Well, first of all, it was Scott Jennings.
True.
So that in and of itself has
That's
zero
true.
credibility.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think you should be kind of clocking it like an umpire does. I think that in reality, the Supreme Court has been supremely wrong several times along the way, and just because they get it right is not a sign of independence. It just means somebody actually bothered to actually follow the law.
Yeah.
And I think we have...
Were you surprised, by the way, to see that tariffs ruling?
No, I was not. I was not, because it involves money, and I feel like if it's like a human, they're like, to hell with your due
That's
process.
so true.
Although you have to give them credit, they were the 9-0 Alien Enemies Act decision.
Yes.
Although they were still also
Which Trump
very
then ignored.
wishy-washy with the facilitate Kilmar Abrego Garcia's return energy.
No, you don't need to give the Supreme Court any credit. That's my opinion. You don't need to give them any credit for anything because the majority of them, like this conservative supermajority that they've had, are just utter disgraces, like what Katie was saying, to human rights. So they really don't care about people. And we've seen this time and time again. It's like, even if they have some cases where they happen to see something in, like, supporting human rights, most of the time it's not because they're doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. It's because they know that the case is so strong that they don't have a choice, or that, like, they can't reasonably go against it. So there is that. I wouldn't be giving them credit.
But I will say that I have also
I mean,
fallen into, I think it's a
Ketanji
very
Brown Jackson
lazy space.
has consistently
I
been
will
on the
own it,
right side of
where
history.
we say, oh, well, that's
So
a
we'll give
Republican
her
judge, or
credit.
that's a Democratic, appointed judge. I think that we need to now be, that's a rule of law judge or not.
Yes.
That's a follow the Constitution judge or not. I feel like when you try to do the party stuff.
Republican judges, quote unquote,
Trump
who have
judges.
called that Trump judges, Reagan
Reagan's.
appointees, Bush, where they've come up with very scathing decisions about ICE deportations, about media freedom, etc. So you're right, it is about who's actually following the law and who isn't. What about this argument? You went to law school, you're a lawyer, you say you believe in the rules. What about the argument that if we're living in an increasingly fascistic era, when the Supreme Court says 9-0, deal with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and Trump sits down with Terry Moran the following week and says, no, I don't need to do that. I don't. The famous line about Stalin and the Pope, how many divisions does he have? Like, the Supreme Court can issue as many rules as they want. Who's going to enforce it if you have a president who says, no thanks?
And that's inherently
exactly
the problem, right? And so that's why I say, and not to be, predictably foreboding about it, but I do think, though, there will come a point in time where people are going to say, I've tried it your way. I've tried it the way of, here's your court order, do something with it. And with no teeth, I think what you're going to find is, I think you're going to find a dramatic shift in the judiciary to actually be, I'm putting you in jail. Like, this is contempt. Like, I do think that you will find members of the judiciary that are going to say, there has to be teeth to what we do. But I also think you're going to find a swath of people that are going to say, I cannot rely upon this independent judiciary to actually do what it's supposed to be doing, and we need to do something differently.
The big question is, of course, it's not just judges. Judges react to cases that are brought in front of them, prosecutions that are made in front of them. Obviously, the Democrats were in office for 4 years. I tore my hair out over at MSNBC over Merrick Garland and his inability to bring cases fast enough against Trump and his cohorts.
Because he was living in the norms and institutions.
He was living in the norms, but even by their standards of norms, he was very, very slow, and he was not the right man for that moment. To go back to your point about the urgency of the moment, he wasn't the guy who should have been Attorney General the day after January 20th, 2021, when there'd just been an insurrection 2 weeks earlier. Can the next Democratic administration, you were at the Capitol for the alternative counter program, a lot of members of Congress were there, you know a lot of Democrats in office. Does this Democratic Party have the teeth? Has it woken up to where we are? Does it realize what it has to do next? I ask a lot of Democrats who come on the show, like, if you get office again, if you get power in Congress, if you win back the White House, are you going to do what Barack Obama did in 2009, which is, we're not going to look back, we're going to look forward. He didn't prosecute the CIA torturers. He didn't prosecute Bush and Cheney for what they did. He didn't prosecute the Wall Street big bankers. Is the next Democratic administration actually going to come and hold these people to account?
I have now, well, I'm curious to hear what they're telling you. I have now gotten to the point where I've explicitly stated that my platform and the ability to amplify your message, maybe even your campaign, if you are not committed to accountability hearings from day one, then I won't support you. I think I think, I hate to be very blunt, I don't think the entirety of the Democratic Party is ready for that. I think when you're being told by Hakeem Jeffries, for example, if you go, you have to sit there quietly.
Yes, as he said
if you're not going to sit there quietly, then don't go. I'm troubled by that, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I think what we loved to see last night at our counter
These
program,
respectability
we had the People State Union.
politics,
It's a
because
very much
Hakeem
younger
Jeffries
group
is
that was
bought and
there.
sold.
A lot
We
more,
know
quote,
this.
progressive. I hate using that label, but progressive caucus members. I think you saw a lot of people. I think you saw a lot of people of color from the Democratic Party that are saying, no, we are very forcefully making our way towards the front of the line. My concern is, I've said this before, I'll say it again. My concern is Democrats have the dog finally catching the car moment in November.
Yes.
We win in November 2026, and then everybody stands there just kind of looking at each other like, okay, well, do we just have a meeting now? And what do we do? We have to have a plan from day one. Because if you do not actually have accountability hearings from day one, then what was the whole point of all of this?
Yes.
Because you know there's going to be a battle by along the way. Remember when we had power and they ignored your congressional subpoenas, and Steve Bannon now, and everybody else, Peter Navarro.
Now they're subpoenaing Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
I had Maxwell Frost on the show, and he said that exact point, that you have to run on accountability. It has to be part of the platform, the manifesto, the pledge of demands, that we will do X, Y, Z when we get into office. We had Robert Garcia on the show who said Stephen Miller will be top of the list of people we will bring before the House of Oversight. I had a chat with my colleague Prem where I said they should look into investigating, maybe prosecuting Elon Musk, which led to Elon Musk calling me evil and attacking me, which makes me think he's very worried about being investigated for his
thou doth protest too much.
Indeed.
Exactly.
This is a man who doesn't care about, if you call him a racist, he's fine. If you call him any other name, he doesn't care. But if you mention you may be held accountable for crimes, he gets very upset about that.
So why do you think last night in the 2-hour, sundowning rambling that you heard for Donald Trump,
Yeah,
you didn't hear
sundowning.
the word Epstein
Exactly.
Didn't hear the word Epstein, you hear the word Doge, by the way. But Epstein is good. I love this interview because he keeps segueing into my next topic. So why did we not hear the word Epstein then? What is the DOJ? You're a lawyer. Let me ask you for our viewers at home. Our viewers at home don't like Pam Bondi, I'm sure.
Pamela Joe.
Put it in historical context. Put it in a global context. Put it in a law school context. How, I'm trying to find the technical term, freaky is this Department of Justice?
Oh, it's not. Oh, they're getting their freak on, but like in illegal ways. There is a law called the Epstein Files Transparency Act. I didn't pass that law.
Yeah.
This Congress and this president signed it
Including
into law.
Republicans,
And since December 19th of 2025, each and every day, this Department of Justice has been breaking the law. Breaking the law, but they're not doing anything about it. What are they supposed to self-prosecute?
Exactly.
This comes back- so a lot of people at home will be like,
Self-flagellate with the Epstein Files
but who
Transparency
holds
Act?
the DOJ to account?
Well, that's the problem, right? When you actually have members of Congress who have now decided that impotency is the way that they want to go, which happened last night, right? You saw Donald Trump pretty much give the middle finger to the members of Congress. He's like, I don't really need you, right? I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do. Well, Congress actually could be doing some stuff, and they're not. Because when you look at what happens in House Oversight, House Judiciary, when you see Pamela Joe rolling on in there with her binders of opposition research and her one-liners that suck.
Shouting about the stock market.
The Dow. When you see that and you see Republicans failing to use their powers on oversight to actually get answers, then whose problem is that? It's the members of Congress problem, right? They're the ones that are failing to not use their power in the way it's supposed to be. But I want to be very clear. This Department of Justice has taken breaking the law to next level. I mean, you want to talk gold medal men's hockey team, you got to give it to the DOJ. And I think the reason why you didn't hear, I know the reason why you didn't hear Epstein is Trump knows it's his Achilles heel.
Yes.
He knows he knows that it has been perverted in such a way, even in MAGA world, that he's not able to extricate himself. If Nick Fuentes, of all people, is saying, F Donald Trump, F MAGA, they screwed up the rollout of Epstein, they haven't handled this properly, screw Pam Bondi, that's a problem.
And that's all before some of the more recent revelations we're learning about the DOJ's role. The NPR recently found that the Justice Department is withholding files that allege Trump sexually abused a minor.
She was 13, and it was in 1983.
Indeed. These are, of course, allegations have not been tried in court. Donald Trump denies them. Let's just be clear about all that. But they were considered credible because the FBI interviewed this person. This is not one of the allegations that came through a tip line.
4 times.
And this is the problem with the Epstein files. And you talk to kind of what I call normies, friends of mine who are not in the media politics, who are just seeing this stuff unfiltered.
What are they saying? It's not credible?
No, the other way around. They want to believe everything. Friends of mine. And I'm saying, no, some of the stuff in the Epstein files is nonsense, right? It's just stuff that came into a tip line. But this, it's very hard to separate out the nonsense from the stuff that's more credible. And in this case, the FBI interviewed this woman 4 times. 3 of the files are missing. House Oversight Committee ranking member in California, Congressman Robert Garcia, who I mentioned, he released a statement saying that when he said he reviewed unredacted evidence logs at the Department of Justice, he could confirm that the DOJ appears to have illegally withheld FBI interviews with this survivor who accused President Trump of heinous crimes. Now, my point on this, Katie, and let me see what you think about this, is fundamentally, my issue is not whether Donald Trump, and I can't believe I have to say that out loud, whether the President of the United States raped a child or not.
I understand.
Park that huge thing for a moment.
Sure.
The bigger short-term issue is the DOJ is clearly covering up the allegations themselves.
But it's not, they're covering up. They're breaking the law.
Yes.
If you look at the Epstein Files Transparency Act, it very clearly says these are the only permissible withholding and exemptions for you to do it. And this doesn't fall. It explicitly says you cannot withhold because it's politically embarrassing, because you think it's sensitive. You can't do that. You want to know what the irony is? I have always been asked all the time, Katie, what news sources do you go to considering the amount of misinformation and disinformation that exists in this world? And you know what I say? I'm like, I'm not going to limit you because I think you should go and you should read everything and anything. But you know what the problem is? We have a crisis of a lack of critical thinking skills. We have a critical thinking skills problem.
You're singing my
And
tune.
so what I find to be so ridiculous about this DOJ, this administration, is they think they're using their critical thinking skills by weeding out for Americans what they think we shouldn't be looking at. It's called Transparency Act, right? So why not put it all out there and let us use our critical thinking skills to determine if it's bullshit or not? But no. That's how you know it's bad for Trump. Because when you're using a Trump filter, and I'm going to remind people too, members of Congress have confirmed when they went to go look at the DOJ at the dinky little terminals.
There's a million references
No, and this is from Ro Khanna when I spoke to him. The Trump FBI in March of 2025 did their version of redactions, and it was Trump related.
Yes.
And then the DOJ did its version of redactions, including Trump stuff. And so when it was turned over so members of Congress could go look, the DOJ, when you clicked on the little thing, the DOJ version of the redactions went away, but you know what stayed? The FBI redactions. You know there's something bad. Because if it wasn't, if he was totally exonerated, as he likes to say, then why not show all of us what's out there? And just laugh it off. And say,
and if the stories are as I was on Piers Morgan's show recently, he said, oh, these stories are all nonsense, they've all been disproven. A, they haven't been disproven, they weren't tried.
Who's tried?
Exactly.
Show me the investigation into this allegation of the 13-year-old in 1983 and how it concluded. But they never did.
No, they
never did. And that's how we know that there's something there. There's something there.
There's something there.
There's a there.
We have a very litigious president, so I'm going to repeat that he denies raping children.
Yes.
The fact that I even have to do a denial that the president of the United States is raping children.
He denies it, and there is nothing that's been investigated.
There's nothing been investigated.
Which also I think is bad.
Which is 100% bad. Where does this leave Trump then, going forward? He's got 3 more years as president. We're only 1 year into this shit show. You've got the Supreme Court ruling against him on tariffs. You've got his opinion poll rating crashing.
He's going to lose on birthright citizenship too. We have oral arguments on April 1st.
You think?
He's going to.
Which justices? Same 6-3?
I actually think it's going to be even worse for him on this one.
Thomas and Alito will be on his side, surely. You think Kavanaugh might switch?
Well, listen, I'm also reading that Alito's thinking about retiring too, right? So who's going to come up for that? What type of outrageous racist is going to come up for that job,
It's going to be, what's her name, the Florida judge?
Oh, Aileen Cannon, who just shut down Volume 2 of Jack Smith, right?
She's going to get her pay. She's going to get her reward.
Here's the thing. There are pretty big cases that still remain, but the one that we're watching very carefully, all kidding aside, is Calais. It's the voting, the redistricting, the illegal gerrymandering case, because the through line of all of this corruption, it's not just financial grift and corruption, it's not just, the total destruction and dereliction of morality. It is trying to rig these elections in November. It's shoving the SAVE Act down Senate's throat last night. It's this allegation falsely of voter fraud, which doesn't exist. All of this, and give me the voter rolls and let me raid Fulton County. All of this is to get us into November of 2026. Why? Because then if you don't have House and Senate controlled by Democrats, you have even less oversight.
Yes, and then 28 becomes whatever you want it to be.
Exactly.
And that's where, to go full circle, John Roberts has always been bad when it comes to voting rights related issues. That's where he doesn't show any independence or crossover or moderation.
When I saw his face, it's like he knows his legacy has so many freaking asterisks now. Listen, his legacy is total absolute immunity for Trump.
Yes, and Trump bragged about it recently in a post.
Yes, and so if you're John Roberts and you see, I don't want to take credit for this, somebody said Roberts' face was staring at the Frankenstein, which is not accurate, by the way. Frankenstein was the doctor. It was the monster that Dr. Frankenstein created.
Yeah.
That's what he was looking at.
And the best bit is Trump acknowledged it. Katie, we will have to leave it there. Always a pleasure. Great to chat with you. We've got to do it again.
Anytime. It's good to see you, my friend. I'm very proud of you, by the way.
Thank you, and I'm proud of you. Check out Katie Fang on YouTube. Check out her show. You'll get more no holds barred analysis, I hope.
Straight no chaser, I like to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to zeteo.com. Your support matters.
All right. She's still there. Sorry. Didn't mean to wake her. So cute. Okay. So, as an update, we did see James Tallarico win the Democratic primary. So, I wanted to see his acceptance speech.
We are still waiting for an official call, but we are confident in this movement we've built together. Every vote must be counted. Every voice must be heard.
Audio is
the voter suppression
yikes.
In my home county and in Congresswoman Crockett's home county underscores the gravity of this moment. The number of young people who showed up to vote in this election is unprecedented. The number of Texans who have never voted before but showed up in this election is unprecedented. The number of independents and Republicans who voted in this Democratic primary is unprecedented. This is proof that there is something happening in Texas. Tonight, the people of our state gave this country a little bit of hope. And a little bit of hope is a dangerous thing. I want to thank y'all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in this fight. God bless y'all. Thank you.
So, there's that. Okay, I finished my bracelet. Ta-da! I'm probably going to start making another. I need to be doing something with my hands as I'm watching all of this political nonsense. Okay, so this is a video by the creator, former Black Panther Speaks, Can America Be Saved? And he is focusing on action plans for resistance, actually tackling some of these issues with government contracts and approaching community safety in a very practical manner. So I wanted to watch this. This is from 10 days ago, and I want to see what he has to say.
If D.C. ignores the real-time stability needs of ordinary American citizens, then we will ignore D.C. as the primary solution to those needs. Not with hostility, not with rebellion, but with disciplined independence. We will not wait for gridlock to resolve before we reduce violence risk. We will not wait for hearings before we strengthen neighborhood trust. We will not wait for legislation before we adopt de-escalation norms that makes daily life calmer. In simple terms, we will ignore D.C. where D.C. ignores the immediate stability concerns of the people. That does not mean disengaging from democracy. It means refusing to leave daily safety, school environments, and community harm entirely dependent on slow institutional processes. Standard not force is built on a different premise. Civic stability can be built laterally, citizen by citizen, community to community, without waiting for vertical permission from Washington. So while Washington debates, we standardize. While Washington delays, we stabilize. And while Washington focuses on partisan outcomes, we focus on predictable daily behavior that reduces risk regardless of who holds office. That is not defiance. That is civic maturity. That was the ending of our last video. I played it because I received some comments that led me to believe some people don't view the entirety of the videos. They watch a few minutes and make emotional comments, having not obtained the necessary information to make an informed comment. So I thought I'd replay the ending of the last video to give them some context. And hopefully, going forward, they will watch the videos in their entirety. Or maybe I'll just place the most important points in the first few minutes of the videos. Now, having said that, welcome to Standards Not Force. And let's get down to the business of saving our country. I continue to think those of you who's reaching out and thinking law enforcement and our military service members, I'm sure they are pleased to receive your messages. Some of you have started Gift Giving Mondays. I thank you for that, as now we can become more neighborly. We'll be developing Gift Giving Mondays initiative more thoroughly in the coming months. So we're all on the same page with the same message. Our committees have been formed, and currently they are engaged in creating policies and procedure standards not force will operate within. I want to begin with clarity. Now, we develop Tier 2, the power of standards not force. We now have more than 46,000 subscribers on this channel. Our Tier 2 participants. That is not an audience. That is an emergent civic network. But a network without direct communications is not operational. It is only observational. Right now, Tier 2, I can speak to you through videos. You can respond in comments, but we cannot coordinate responsibly, lawfully, and effectively without a voluntary mailing list. This is the gap we must close. Today's message is simple, Tier 2. If you believe in standards, discipline, and lawful civic action, you must join the mailing list in the description. That step converts you from a viewer into a participant in a national standards framework. YouTube is a broadcast platform. It is not an operational coordinating system. I cannot see your contact information. I cannot send structured updates. I cannot deliver organized assignments to you. I cannot issue measured, lawful civic guidance in a timely and accountable manner without direct communications. Our movement remains reactive instead of strategic. Standards require strategy. They require clarity. They require discipline. They require lawful coordination. That is why email matters. Not for noise, not for pressure, but for structure. In a few weeks, we're launching a disciplined, lawful, civic standards pilot in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. The objective is simple, Tier 2. We are requesting transparency from corporations operating in our communities regarding their policies on actions that destabilize families, frighten children, and create fear across neighborhoods. We are not protesting. We are not disrupting commerce. We are not targeting workers. We are asking corporations one question. What are your policies? That is the entire foundation of this implementation. And for this to work, we need coordination, discipline, and direct communications with you, Tier 2, because success depends on organized, respectful inquiries, not scattered reactions. If we're going to succeed, as I know that we will, 3 things must happen simultaneously. First, we must send calm, professional emails to corporate executives asking for their policies. Second, we must place informational cards and signage lawfully and respectfully throughout Minneapolis and St. Paul so the public understands the standards being requested. Third, we must do this in a coordinated way so the message is consistent, lawful, and credible. This is not chaos. This is structure. The entire pilot succeeds or fails based on discipline coordination. Here is exactly how implementation works. We do not confront anyone. We do not disrupt business. We do not interfere with commerce. As I mentioned in previous emails, you can do this from home, from your own living room, a little less than 5 or 10 minutes of your day. We do 3 disciplined things only, Tier 2. We email corporate leadership respectfully, requesting written clarification of their policies. We provide informational cards explaining the standards we are encouraging. This is done calmly, professionally, and without accusation throughout both cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul.
This is a way to get resistance on the record for these various entities that he is talking about, these companies, these institutions, that they are forced to respond to certain questions. That's why it's important to have a legal approach to this situation, knowing what is legal and what also protects people when they are reaching out to these places. That when we do this in a coordinated effort, that it helps with the credibility of a movement, and it forces these outsized powers to scramble and provide a response, but it puts them on alert that we are watching them, and they have to feel this kind of pressure in order to change anything about what is happening. And it is a very smart way to get documentation, get things on the record so that we have proof of how they are responding, how they are behaving, probably in different ways than what they are claiming that they are, and that we have evidence of it, because this means that it is able to be used in a court of law and hold these people accountable, that there is a legal framework that is being applied so that we have a case as like we the people against what's going on.
Some of us will place signage only if we're permitted throughout businesses and the cities. Only where allowed to communicate community expectations around stability, dignity, and transparency. That is it. No escalation, no force, only standards and documentation. This will create safe spaces as well as create safe communities. Corporations, owners, and corporate executives will get the message. They can read between the lines. This is why coordination matters. Because one undisciplined message undermines our credibility. But 46,000 plus calm, professional inquiries create institutional review without confrontation. The pilot begins in everyday infrastructure places where community stability is most visible. Airlines, airports, rental car companies and transportation services, Uber and Lyft ecosystems, hotels and lodging chains, restaurants and fast food entities, shopping malls and retail outlets, gas stations and travel hubs like train stations and bus stations. These are not targets. They are contact points where policies matter. Because their operations intersect directly with everyday community life. Our goal is not disruption. Our goal is clarity and transparency. And that requires discipline, coordinated outreach, not random emotional messaging. Right now, we have the structure, we have the committees, we have the standards language, we have the pilot city selected. What we do not have is a way to contact the majority of you directly. And without direct contact, we cannot assign specific corporations. We cannot provide you the approved language, and we cannot maintain disciplined coordination. If you email independently without guidance, the message fragments. If you place materials without instruction, the standards become inconsistent. And inconsistency destroys credibility. You are essential, Tier 2, but only if we can coordinate with you. The operational reality is that implementation is not a slogan. It is a system. That system requires assigned corporations, approved language templates, clear ethical and legal guardrails, and centralized coordination. That coordination is only possible if you voluntarily sign the contact list, because that is how we send to you the specific corporations assigned to you, the respectful inquiry templates you will need, the lawful placement guidance for informational materials, where those materials will be placed within the cities, and the weekly operational updates. Without that structure, there is no disciplined implementation, only noise. So here is the clear directive. If you want to participate in this Minneapolis and St. Paul pilot, you must sign the contact list. That is how we will assign corporations and owners of companies. That is how we will send the approved inquiry language. That is how we will provide the lawful procedures for outreach and informational materials. You are an important part of this effort, Tier 2. But if we cannot contact you, we cannot coordinate with you. And without coordination, we cannot implement successfully. So please, sign the list so we can send you the assigned corporations, their executive contacts, and the exact policy request language. That is how we succeed. Calmly, lawfully, and with disciplined standards, not force. When you sign the contact list, you are not signing up for noise. You are signing up for structure. You will receive the specific corporations and sectors assigned to you, the exact executive contact channels we will use, the approved professional inquiry templates, clear instructions on how to communicate respectfully and lawfully, guidance on informational cards and signage placement standards, no improvisation, no freelancing, No emotional messaging. Only disciplined, consistent, standards communication. Because institutions respond to clarity. They respond to documentation. They respond to professional inquiry. They do not respond to scattered commentary. And we are not here to comment. We are here to implement standards. I want to be precise about the substance of these inquiries. We are not accusing anyone. We are not alleging any wrongdoing. We are not requesting policy transparency. Specifically, we are asking corporations to clarify whether they provide logistical support for operations that separate families, whether they maintain internal standards regarding detention-related lodging or services, whether they have ethical review policies for activities that create fear within communities, whether they have written policies protecting workers, children, and families from destabilizing enforcement practices. These are legitimate policy questions. They are professional. They are lawful. They are standard corporate governance inquiries. When 46,000 plus of calm inquiries ask for written policy clarification, corporate leadership conducts internal review. That is how standards began to form. Not through confrontation, through transparency. This only works if discipline is absolute. No harassment, no repeated messaging, no targeting individual employees, no interference with any business operations. We do not engage workers. We do not engage customers. We do not create conflict in public spaces. We communicate with leadership professionally, once, using approved language, and we document their responses. That is standards-based civic engagement. It is calm, it is lawful, it is measured, and it is sustainable. Undisciplined action damages credibility. Disciplined actions build institutional respect. And institutional respect is what leads to policy review. Implementation is not only digital, it is also educational. Informational cards and signage are not accusations. They are not confrontational. They are informational statements about community standards. They communicate three things only: that communities value stability and dignity, that transparency in corporate policies matters, that civic standards can exist without force or disruption. These materials are placed respectfully, lawfully, and only in appropriate contexts where informational literature is permitted. Their purpose is not pressure. Their purpose is awareness. Awareness stabilizes communities. Stability reduces fear. Reduced fear creates healthier civic environments. That is the chain reaction we are initiating. Why Minneapolis and St. Paul? We are starting locally in Minneapolis and St. Paul because disruption is still occurring there. We're starting there because disciplined implementation must be proven in a controlled environment before scaling nationally. Minneapolis and St. Paul provide diverse infrastructure sectors.
Yeah, there are still kidnappings happening there by the mass Gestapo agents, and people are not being released from detention. Despite this claim of drawing down, having people leave, they aren't seeing much evidence of this.
Visibility of civic standards messaging, a manageable geographic scope for coordination, a testing ground to refine procedures, language, and documentation. This is not reactive mobilization. This is deliberate, pilot implementation. We proved the model locally there in Minneapolis and St. Paul. We refined the process and only then consider expansion to other cities. Precision first, scale later. This is how disciplined civic systems are built. If you are watching this, you already understand the principles. But principles without structure do not change institutions. Operations do. Operations require coordination. Coordination requires contact. Contact requires voluntary sign-up. It requires your involvement, Tier 2. If you want to be assigned specific corporations and sectors, if you want the approved inquiry language, if you want lawful guidance on informational materials, if you want to participate in disciplined civic standards implementation, if you want to stop the destruction of our cities and our country, you must sign the contact list. That is how we transition from an audience to an operational civic network. This is the moment to move from observation to disciplined participation. We are not reacting emotionally. We are not implementing deliberately. We are not forcing outcomes. We are setting standards and requesting transparency. We are not creating conflict. We are creating clarity. But clarity requires coordination, and coordination requires communication. Sign the list so we can contact you, assign you to corporations and owners, and provide the exact policy request procedures. That is how we proceed. Calmly, lawfully, and collectively. 46,000 subscribers is significant, but numbers alone do not create impact. Organization does. Structure does. Discipline does. Standards do. Today is the moment we move from a channel to a coordinated national standards network. The link is below. Join the mailing list. Stay informed. Stay disciplined. Stay lawful. Because real civic change does not come from force. It comes from standards applied consistently, calmly, and collectively. I will see you inside the network. Tier 2. Standards not force. All power to the people.
That sigh at the end. Well, I'm gonna look for that link and then also share it in the chat if you are interested. Sign up for the email list. I'm gonna drop this in the chat. Okay, I just signed up for it. Oh, it looks like it's a Substack. Okay. And then this is where announcements are given, from what it looks like. Okay. There is this other video that he created called How Our Taxes Build the Billionaire Class that I'm very interested in watching. So let's take a look at this.
Well, I guess we know now. Congress won't stop him. He's just doing what...
Yeah, let's see. 2 days ago, so after the strikes.
What he wants. Setting the world on fire. 80% of us don't agree with what he's doing. That's about 130 million registered voters. And maybe 180 to 200 million adults against one. And he's kicking our butts. What you gonna do, American people? 200 million to 1. We need to find our spine and stand up and quit being a spectator to this mess. And in the words of Biggie Smalls, if you didn't know, now you know.
Exactly.
What if the standard's not force? Hey, thanks to those of you who are continuing to send out your warm wishes to our military and law enforcement. A special thanks to those of you who continue to give gifts on Gift Giving Mondays. I'm getting many thank yous when I give gifts of well wishing to those in my community each Monday. It's a joy to see the joy on their faces and surprise when they receive it. And I'm sure they are continuing to pass the gift the following Monday to somebody different in the community. I'll wait the day when the gift returns back to me. Starting today on this channel, we start taking on the billionaire class in 3 separate videos. Every election cycle, every committee hearing, every press conference, we hear the same words. We are addressing it. We are studying it. We are working on solutions. And yet, the daily realities Americans live with, housing instability, healthcare costs, economic pressure on families, remain largely unchanged. They're not ignored, and they're not unknown. They're just unresolved. So tonight I want to take a different approach. No statistics first, no ideology first, a life. Just want to talk about a life. Every baby born in a hospital knows absolutely nothing when they are born. Their brains are a clean slate. So let's follow one child from birth to their first day on the job and examine how our taxes make us shareholders in large corporations, but we get no returns for our investment. The owners of these corporations take all the profits and become billionaires. You see today how once they become billionaires, they begin reshaping our country into an autocracy as they become oligarchs. They use our children we have trained to make AI and robots. They don't know how to make robots, and they definitely don't know how to write code for AI. As we train our kids and give them experience and knowledge to make robots and AI, then the corporations use them in hopes to get rid of us. Our tax dollars support that journey every child makes, every step of the way into the corporations. So we will ask a simple structural question. If our dollars build the expertise, that foundation that corporations depends on, what's the appropriate national standard in return? Let's take a closer look at this. A child is born in an American hospital. That moment feels private, personal, and family-centered. But structurally, it is already supported by public tax systems we pay into. The hospital exists within a regulated framework shaped by federal and state law. The physicians were trained in universities our tax dollars heavily subsidize to create public funded research grants as well as loan systems. Residency programs in the hospital rely on our taxes for Medicare supported funding structures.
Highlighting how all our money is being used and who is contributing, because especially the billionaire class, and I'm sure he's going to touch on this, who are not paying their taxes yet steal our wages and then want to have like wings of these hospitals, that they are the ones benefiting the most from this system.
The hospital receives approximately $150,000 a year for the resident. The resident is paid from $50,000 to $60,000 each year. The owner of the hospital makes a profit of $80,000 to $90,000 per resident. Well, that profit is our tax dollars. Public health departments monitor safety standards, sanitation, and disease control, all paid for by our tax dollars. Before that newborn child ever opens their eyes to the world, an invisible architecture of our public tax investment has already protected them. And the billionaires are already taking profits. No return to us. The delivery room, the trained professionals, the regulated pharmaceuticals, the emergency systems on standby, all exist because we, the taxpayers, collectively finance the stability of that system over decades. That is the first layer of the newborn's journey. Then the child leaves the hospital and goes home. The roads carrying that family home were built and maintained with public funds, our tax dollars. Traffic safety systems, the emergency response services, and environmental health regulations all operate continuously in the background, supported by our tax dollars. Vaccination programs are coordinated by public health agencies, our tax dollars. Clean water standards are enforced by regulatory bodies, supported by our tax dollars. Food safety inspections ensure that what the child eats does not endanger their development, our tax dollars. None of these systems announce themselves daily. They simply function because of our tax dollars.
Yes. And then what dictates how these tax dollars are being spent is the Congress, so the people who are making these laws at the federal and state level.
This is the nature of stable infrastructure. It is most visible when it fails, and largely invisible when it succeeds. But make no mistake, this is cumulative public tax investment in human life from the earliest stages. At age 5, the child enters school. Now the public tax roll becomes unmistakable. Classrooms funded by local and state taxes, our tax dollars. Teachers trained in publicly supported universities, our tax dollars. Curriculum standards developed through state and federal education systems. Transportation systems bringing children safely to and from school. Day after day, year after year, the child's literacy, numeracy, and cognitive development are cultivated in an environment financed and regulated by our public taxes. This is workforce formation in slow motion. The student learns to read instructions, to write reports, to solve problems, to cooperate with others in structured environments. These are all incidental skills. They are the core competencies every modern corporation later demands from its employees. As the child grows into adolescence, the public investment deepens. Science labs funded by public budgets introduce them to experimentation and analysis. Public tax funded libraries provide access to knowledge resources far beyond what any individual household could supply. Public tax-funded athletic programs build teamwork and discipline. Community colleges and technical programs are often subsidized by taxes. They offer pathways to specialized skills. Even digital learning tools operate on internet infrastructure. The infrastructure was originally began with public funded research networks decades ago. The point is not to romanticize government. The point is structural accuracy. A society that expects a competent workforce must invest consistently in developing human capability. And that is exactly what our public tax dollars does. Year after year, and largely without fanfare. At 18, the young adult reaches a crossroads. Some go directly into the workforce, others pursue higher education. They enter college. Public loan guarantees, grants, and research-funded universities expand their capabilities further. If they go straight to work, bypassing college, they still rely on labor regulations, transportation infrastructure, and a stable economic environment shaped by public policy, our taxes. Either path remains anchored in the same reality. Their ability to function productively in society was built on top of a long chain of our public tax investment. This is not theoretical, it is chronological. From birth through education and early childhood, the public has participated continuously in cultivating that individual's capacity to contribute economically. Now imagine that individual walking into their first day on the job at a major corporation. They are hired because they are qualified. But that qualification did not emerge spontaneously. It was built over 2 decades through public healthcare systems that preserved their health, public schools that developed their knowledge, public infrastructure that enabled their daily functioning, public legal and economic stability that allowed businesses to operate predictably. By the time that employee logs in on their first day, the public has already invested thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars into the development of that human capital. Multiply that by millions of employees.
Look at human capital. That's a really great way of putting it. That, we are in this system of capitalism that is institutionalized through legislation. That this is how we are viewed. There is a reason why there is not more money devoted to these programs to help with human dignity, because we are viewed as assets. And this is how the structure of the government is in how we develop as human beings in the US, but also how billionaires are able to exploit this system and our labor to siphon off our wages.
Across major corporations, you now begin to see the structural partnership that already exists between public investment and private profitability. That brings us to the core structural question. If public tax systems systematically contribute to the creation of the workforce, the infrastructure, and the stability that corporations rely upon, what is the appropriate long-term standard governing that relationship? Not punishment, not hostility, standards. A rational, disciplined framework that recognizes the reciprocal nature of public investment and private profit generation. This is not an emotional argument. It is an economic and civic architecture question. In this first part, we have not discussed solutions. We have only walked through a life from birth to employment and examined the invisible public investments supporting that journey. In part two, we'll shift from narrative to framework. What would a standards-based national model look like that aligns corporate success with sustained public stability? And in part three, we will examine a specific lawful policy mechanism designed to operationalize that standard at the national level. Because understanding the life is the first step. Understanding the structure behind that life is the next. Standards, not force. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Join us on Substack for more information at the address in our description. To sign up as a volunteer on our national campaign against deportations, family separations, and arresting and handcuffing children, you can also be done in the descriptions. All power to the people. I'll see you on the next video.
All right. That same link is the one to sign up for the Substack. Will be interesting to see how this is rolled out. But already there is a lot of support. Okay. Shall we get into the reading? Let's get into the reading. Okay. So we are on Volume 2, Chapter 2. The second book, technically, of Wuthering Heights, because it was published originally in 2 versions. I'm putting on my reading gloves. My opera gloves. because I'm extra. Ooh. The second book of Wuthering Heights was also, I learned yesterday, was published with Agnes Grey, which was written by Anne Bronte. So the three Bronte sisters, Charlotte, who's the oldest, Emily, and then Anne. And so Emily had the second part of Wuthering Heights published with Agnes Grey, which was written by Anne Bronte. So they didn't get their own publishing deals, which is sad. And probably at the time there was like some man at a publishing company that was like, well, we can get two of you for one book, shall we? You can split the you can split the proceeds. Yes, that's probably how it went down. Okay, so some time has passed, and we have Catherine and Heathcliff reunited for a bit. Heathcliff wanted Nellie to allow him in to see Catherine, and they're able to see each other. And Catherine is not doing well, to say the least. She is, seems to be like vacillating between all sorts of emotions, and she also seems to be having some hallucinations, probably having a psychotic episode or episodes. And it also is illustrating kind of this like fragility that she has, and that has developed especially because of her class. And when it comes to experiencing more hardship, that she experiences a breakdown, and why we don't see as much empathy or pity coming from Nellie the servant, because she's like, yeah, I like clean your chamber pot and stuff, so like you don't have it that hard. So that's why she can seem callous, but it also is this element of class involved. Okay, so this is the last part of the last chapter of Heathcliff, saying, he sent a rapid glance through the half-open door of the chamber, and ascertaining that what I stated was apparently true, delivered the house of his luckless presence. So Heathcliff is wanting to meet Catherine again. Okay. About 12 o'clock that night was born the Catherine you saw at Wuthering Heights. So Nellie is still the narrator here. A puny 7 months child, and 2 hours after the mother died, having never recovered sufficient consciousness to miss Heathcliff or know Edgar. What? They just went about that so quickly that she died, saying the mother. Almost as if, like, the child, like, stole her life from one Catherine to another, is almost like this, like, reincarnation is kind of how that's phrased. Damn, that happened quick. And 2 hours after the mother died, having never recovered sufficient consciousness to miss Heathcliff or know Edgar. Okay. There we go. Kathy died. Just so we're aware, throwing that out. Sad, but also she does not have to at least be shut in the room all day. The latter's distraction at his bereavement is a subject too painful to be dwelt on, meaning Edgar, her husband. Its after effects showed how deep the sorrow sunk. A great addition in my eyes was his being left without an heir. I bemoaned that, as I gazed on the feeble orphan, and mentally abused old Linton because it's a girl. So that's why he's upset. And I mentally abused old Linton for what was only natural partiality, the securing his estate to his own daughter instead of his son's. Okay, so we have a footnote. In the event of Edgar having no male offspring, the Grange estate would pass to Isabella, and subsequently to her male offspring after Edgar's death. Because this is how the succession works with lands and titles. Patriarchy. Fun. Okay. An unwelcome infant it was, poor thing. It might have wailed out of life, and nobody cared a morsel during those first hours of existence. We deemed the neglect afterwards, but its beginning was as friendless as its end is likely to be. Next morning, bright and cheerful out of doors, stole softened in through the blinds of Okay. I, misunderstood that sentence. Let's try this again. Next morning, bright and cheerful out of doors, stole softened in through the blinds of the silent room, and suffused the couch and its occupant with a mellow, tender glow. Edgar Linton had his head laid on the pillow, and his eyes shut. His young and fair features were almost as death-like as those of the form beside him, and almost as fixed. But his was the hush of exhausted anguish, and hers of perfect peace. Her brow smooth, her lids closed, her lips wearing the expression of a smile. No angel in heaven could be more beautiful than she appeared, and I partook of the infinite calm in which she lay. My mind was never in a holier frame than while I gazed on that untroubled image of divine rest. I instinctively echoed the words she had uttered a few hours before. Incomparably beyond and above us all, whether still on earth or now in heaven, her spirit is at home with God. I don't know if it be a peculiarity in me, but I am seldom otherwise than happy while watching in the chamber of death. Well, that certainly is a peculiarity, Nellie, I have to say. Should no frenzied or despairing mourner share the duty with me, I see a repose that neither earth nor hell can break. This is so gothic in subject matter to be like, yes, death, this is peace. And I feel an assurance of the endless and shadowless hereafter, the eternity they have entered, where life is boundless in its duration, and love in its sympathy, and joy in its fullness. I noticed on that occasion how much selfishness there is, even in a love like Mr. Linton's, when he so regretted Catherine's blessed release. To be sure, one might have doubted, after the wayward and impatient existence she had led, whether she merited a haven of peace at last. One might doubt in seasons of cold reflection, but not then, in the presence of her corpse. It asserted its own tranquillity, which seemed a pledge of equal quiet to its former inhabitants. Footnote. Modern editions have tended to normalize this sentence by printing inhabitant. However, both the 1847 first edition and Charlotte's 1850 amended edition use the plural of the noun, which is richly suggestive of the shared identity of Catherine and Heathcliff. Oh, I didn't catch that. I'm going to go back. Which seemed a pledge of equal quiet to its former inhabitants, since she referred to Heathcliff's soul also being her own. Wait, what? I thought this is Nellie still talking, but the next couple of paragraphs. Well, I guess let's see. Interesting. Do you believe such people are happy in the other world, sir? I'd give a great deal to know. I declined answering Mrs. Dean's question, which struck me oh, okay. So now Nellie is actually asking Mr. Linton, who she's telling this story to. So it's like breaking the fourth wall, essentially. I declined answering Mrs. Dean's question, which struck me as something heterodox. She proceeded. Retracing the course of Catherine Linton, I fear we have no right to think she is, but she'll leave her with her maker. The master looked asleep, and I ventured soon after sunrise to quit the room and steal out to the pure, refreshing air. The servants thought me gone to shake off the drowsiness of my protracted watch. In reality, my chief motive was seeing Mr. Heathcliff. If he had remained among the larches all night, he would have heard nothing of the stir at the Grange, unless perhaps he might catch the gallop of the messenger going to Gimmerton. If he had come nearer, he would probably be aware from the lights flitting to and fro, and the opening and shutting of the outer doors, that all was not right within. I wished yet feared to find him. I felt the terrible news must be told, and I longed to get it over, but how to do it I did not know. He was there at least a few yards further in the park, leant against an old ash tree, his hat off, and his hair soaked with the dew that had gathered on the budded branches, and fell pattering round him. He had been standing a long time in that position, for I saw a pair of owls passing and repassing scarcely 3 feet from him, busy in building their nest, and regarding his proximity no more than that of a piece timber, whatever that would be. An owl is a European blackbird, apparently, according to the footnotes. They flew off at my approach, and he raised his eyes and spoke. "She's dead," he said. "I've not waited for you to learn that. Put your handkerchief away. Don't snivel before me. Damn you all! She wants none of your tears." I was weeping as much for him as her. We do sometimes pity creatures that have none of the feeling either for themselves or others, and when I first looked into his face, I perceived that he had got intelligence of the catastrophe, and a foolish notion struck me that his heart was quelled, and he prayed, because his lips moved, and his gaze was bent on the ground. Why is she... So she's looking down on him at first, thinking that, like, oh, he doesn't care that much, and then saying that, like, he shouldn't be caring as much as what he does is what's going to happen. "Yes, she's dead," I answered, checking my sobs and drying my cheeks. "Gone to heaven, I hope, where we may everyone join her, if we take due warning and leave our evil ways to follow good." "Did she take due warning, then?" asked Heathcliff, attempting a sneer. "Did she die like a saint? Come, give me a true history of the event. How did—" He endeavored to pronounce the name, but could not manage it, and compressing his mouth he held a silent combat with his inward agony, defying, meanwhile, my sympathy with an unflinching, ferocious stare. "How did she die?" he resumed at last, fain, notwithstanding his hardihood, to have a support behind him, for after the struggle he trembled in spite of himself to the very finger ends. "Poor wretch," I thought, "you have a heart and nerves the same as your brother men. Why should you be so anxious to conceal them? Your pride cannot blind God. You tempt him to wring them till he forces a cry of humiliation." "Because, as someone who has been oppressed and discriminated against, that he's not going to let people see his anguish of what he experiences. He is very trained with this." "Quietly as a lamb," I answered aloud. She drew a sigh and stretched herself like a child reviving and sinking again to sleep, and 5 minutes after, I felt one little pulse at her heart, and nothing more. "And did she ever mention me?" he asked, hesitating, as if he dreaded the answer to his question would introduce details that he could not bear to hear. "Her senses never returned. She recognized nobody from the time you left her," I said. "She lies with a sweet smile on her face, and her latest ideas wandered back to pleasant early days. Her life closed in a gentle dream. May she wake as kindly in the other world." So this is where the movie, the latest adaptation, where it ends. And this is where many of the movies like to end, or portrayals of this, is where Kathy dies. Because after this, they're like, no, it's boring. We don't want to talk about it anymore. The people who were in love. But it also is this observation of how grief affects people, unrequited love. And we get to see Heathcliff's grief more in... I guess I just said that. We get to see how this impacts him and how this changes his personality and how people perceive him as well. And she dies in childbirth. Catherine does. And in the movie, she dies from sepsis, which is her child died, she was not able to give birth. So that is how the movie ends. And then in the book, she actually is able to give birth to Catherine, the daughter, who is premature. Okay. May she wake in torment, he cried with frightful vehemence, stamping his foot and groaning in sudden paroxysm of ungovernable passion. Ungovernable, yeah. Just like went over that fast and it felt weird. Why, she's a liar to the end. Where is she? Not there, not in heaven, not perished. Where? Oh, you said you cared nothing for my sufferings, and I pray one prayer. I repeat it till my tongue stiffens. Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest as long as I am living. You said I killed you. Haunt me then. Then the murdered do haunt their murderers. I believe, I know that ghosts have wandered the earth. Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad. So he's like, I don't care if you haunt me. I just want you around still. Only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul. He dashed his head against the knotted trunk. Damn. And lifting up his eyes, howled, not like a man, but like a savage beast, getting goaded to death with knives and spears. So again, just the constant comparison of him to an animal and a savage. This is not an accident with how he is also being described as a person of color who his heritage comes from. This is not clear, so it is always a mystery, and he has all of these racialized perceptions thrust upon him. I observed several splashes of blood about the bark of the tree. Damn. And his hand and forehead were both stained. Probably the scene I witnessed was a repetition of others acted during the night. It hardly moved my compassion. Okay. Okay, Nellie. It appalled me. Still, I felt reluctant to quit him so. But the moment he recollected himself enough to notice me watching, he thundered a command for me to go, and I obeyed. He was beyond my skill to quiet or console. Mrs. Linton's funeral was appointed to take place on the Friday following her decease, and then her coffin remained uncovered and strewn with flowers and scented leaves in the great drawing room. Linton spent his days and nights there, a sleepless guardian, and a circumstance concealed from all but me. Heathcliff spent his nights, at least outside, equally a stranger to repose. I held no communication with him. Still, I was conscious of his design to enter, if he could. And on the Tuesday, a little after dark, when my master, from sheer fatigue, had been compelled to retire a couple of hours, I went and opened one of the windows, moved by his perseverance, to give him a chance of bestowing on the fading image of his idol one final adieu. He did not omit to avail himself of the opportunity, cautiously and briefly, too cautiously to betray his presence by the slightest noise. Indeed, I shouldn't have discovered that he had been there, except for the disarrangement of the drapery about the corpse's face, and for observing, so calling Kathy a corpse, and for observing on the floor a curl of light hair, fastened with a silver thread, which on examination I ascertained to have been taken from a locket hung round Catherine's neck. Heathcliff had opened the trinket and cast out its contents, replacing them by a black lock of his own. I twisted the two, and enclosed them together. Okay, this is making a little more sense in terms of like the opening of the movie of the latest adaptation. It starts out saying Wuthering Heights. It has like hair curling up the sides and then has text written Wuthering Heights with hair. And hair is very significant in this novel, but and it does seem to play a fairly significant role in the movie of like hair, all of these shots of like hair blowing in the wind and stuff like that. But we don't get to see that particular instance of this locket of hair and their hair being twined together. That's like a very beautiful image in my mind, and also would tie back to that original opening, just like complete more of these motifs in my mind. I wish we would have had that in the movie. Mr. Earnshaw was, of course, invited to attend the remains of his sister to the grave, and he sent no excuse, but he never came. So that, besides her husband, the mourners were wholly composed of tenants and servants. Isabella was not asked. The place of Catherine's interment, to the surprise of the villagers, was neither in the chapel under the carved monument of the Lintons, nor yet by the tombs of her own relations outside. It was dug on a green slope in a corner of the kirkyard, where the wall is so low that heath and bilberry plants have climbed over it from the moor, and peat mold almost buries it. Her husband lies in the same spot now, and they have each a simple headstone above and a plain gray block at their feet to mark the graves. So he wasn't buried in their tomb yet. So not in her family's tombs or his family's monument. They're buried together on the property, it seems. Okay, that's the end of that chapter, but that's pretty short. I'm gonna go along and just see how far I get with chapter 3. This is a longer one. Let's just get a head start on it, I guess. That Friday made the last of our fine days for a month. In the evening, the weather broke. The wind shifted from south to northeast and brought rain first and then sleet and snow. On the morrow, one could hardly imagine that there had been 3 weeks of summer. The primroses and crocuses were hidden under wintry drifts. The larks were silent. The young leaves of the early trees smitten and blackened. And dreary and chill and dismal that morrow did creep over. My master kept his room. I took possession of the lonely parlor, converting it into a nursery, and there I was sitting with the moaning doll of a child laid on my knee, rocking it to and fro, and watching meanwhile the still driving flakes build up the uncurtained window when the door opened, and some person entered, out of breath and laughing. So Nellie is constantly just like rearing everyone's children after the women die in childbirth. So this is also a book that I read that was like, oh yeah, this happens a lot. This is a common occurrence that when people with uteruses are pregnant, that they often die in childbirth. So we are heading back to this moment with all of these abortion laws. Fun for everyone with a uterus. Okay, continuing. My anger was greater than my astonishment for a minute. I supposed it one of the maids, and I cried, "Have done! How dare you show your giddiness here? What would Mr. Linton say if he heard you?" "Excuse me," answered a familiar voice, "but I know Edgar is in bed, and I cannot stop myself." With that, the speaker came forward to the fire, panting and holding her hand to her side. Who is this? Isabella? Oh, yep. I didn't know what voice to do. "I have run the whole way from Wuthering Heights," she continued after a pause, "except where I've flown. I couldn't count the number of falls I've had. Oh, I'm aching all over. Don't be alarmed. There shall be an explanation as soon as I can give it. Only just have the goodness to step out and order the carriage to take me on to Gimmerton, and tell a servant to seek up a few clothes in my wardrobe." The intruder was Mrs. Heathcliff, and she certainly seemed in no laughing predicament. Her hair streamed on her shoulders, dripping with snow and water. She was dressed in the girlish dress she commonly wore, befitting her age more than her position. A low frock with short sleeves and nothing on either head or neck. The frock was of light silk and clung to her with wet, and her feet were protected merely by thin slippers. Add to this a deep cut under one ear, which only the cold prevented from bleeding profusely, like actually showing like injuries in these books, people suffering like physically. It's not just like, oh, I went in my carriage and I came over. It's like, no, she's running. She's running out in nature, out in the great outdoors, trying to get there. A white face scratched and bruised, and a frame hardly able to support itself through fatigue, and you may fancy my first fright was not much allayed when I had leisure to examine her. "My dear young lady," I exclaimed, "I'll stir nowhere and hear nothing till you have removed every article of your clothing and put on dry things, and certainly you shall not go to Gimmerton tonight, so it is needless to order the carriage." "Certainly I shall," she said, walking or riding. Yet I've no objection to dress myself decently, and I see how it flows down my neck now. The fire does make it smart." She insisted on my fulfilling her directions before she would let me touch her, and not till after the coachman had been instructed to get ready, a maid set to pack up some necessary attire, did I obtain her consent for binding the wound and helping to change her garments. "Now, Ellen," she said when my task was finished, and she was seated on an easy chair on the hearth, with a cup of tea before her, "you sit down opposite me, and put poor Catherine's baby away. I don't like to see it. You mustn't think I care little for Catherine because I behaved so foolishly on entering. I cried too, bitterly. Yes, more than anyone else has reason to cry. We parted unreconciled, you remember, and I shan't forgive myself. But, for all that, I was not going to sympathize with him. The brute beast," talking about Heathcliff. "Oh, give me the poker. This is the last thing of his I have about me." She slipped the gold ring from her third finger and threw it on the floor. "I'll smash it," she continued, striking with childish spite. "And then I'll burn it." And she took and dropped the misused article among the coals. "There! He shall buy another if he gets me back again. He'd be capable of coming to seek me, to tease Edgar. I dare not stay, lest that notion should possess his wicked head." A footnote. Under the marriage laws, Heathcliff could forcibly compel Isabella's return to him. So it's actually showing people being like unhappy in marriage in one of these books at the time. It's not just a romance where it's like, oh, we get married and it's happily ever after. It's like, oh, we're miserable because she got married to the person that she felt compelled to get married to, and not to the person she loved. And besides, Edgar has not been kind, has he? I won't come suing for his assistance, nor will I bring him into more trouble. Necessity compelled me to seek shelter here, though if I had not learnt he was out of the way, I'd have halted at the kitchen, washed my face, warmed myself, got you to bring what I wanted, and departed again to anywhere out of the reach of of that incarnate goblin. Ah, he was in such a fury if he had caught me. It's a pity. Earnshaw is not his match in strength. I wouldn't have run till I'd seen him all but demolished, had Hindley been able to do it. Well, don't talk so fast, miss, I interrupted. You'll disorder the handkerchief I have tied round your face, and make the cut bleed again. Drink your tea, and take a breath, and give over laughing. Laughter is sadly out of place under this roof, and in your condition. Oh, so apparently she was laughing during that delivery. An undeniable truth, she replied. Listen to that child. It remains a constant wail. Send it out of my hearing. For an hour? I shan't stay longer. I rang the bell and committed it to a servant's care, and then I inquired what had urged her to escape from Wuthering Heights in such an unlikely plight, and where she must go, as she refused to be remaining with us. I ought, and I wish to remain, she answered, to cheer Edgar and take care of the baby for two things, and because the Grange is my right home. But I tell you, he wouldn't let me. Do you think he could bear to see me grow fat and merry, and could bear to think that we were tranquil, and not resolve on poisoning our comfort? Now I have the satisfaction of being sure that he detests me to the point of its annoying him seriously to have me within earshot or eyesight. I notice when I enter his presence, the muscles of his countenance are involuntarily distorted into an expression of hatred, partly arising from his knowledge of the good causes I have to feel that the sentiment for him, and partly from the original aversion. It is strong enough to make me feel pretty certain that he would not chase me over England, supposing I contrived a clear escape, and therefore I must get quite away. I've recovered from my first desire to be killed by him. I'd rather he killed himself. He has extinguished my love effectually, and so I'm at ease. I can recollect yet how I love him, and can dimly imagine that I could still be loving him if... No, even if he had doted on me, the devilish nature would have revealed its existence somehow. Catherine had an awfully perverted taste to esteem him so dearly, knowing him so well. Monster! Would that he could be blotted out of creation and out of my memory. Hush, hush! He is a human being, I said. Be more charitable. There are worse men than he is yet. He is not a human being, she retorted, and he had no claim on my charity. I gave him my heart, and he took and pinched it to death, and flung it back to me. People feel with their hearts, Ellen, and since he has destroyed mine, I have not power to feel for him, and I would not, though he groaned from this to his dying day, and wept tears of blood for Catherine. No, indeed I wouldn't. And here Isabella began to cry, but immediately dashing the water from her lashes, she recommenced. You asked what has driven me to flight at last? I was compelled to attempt it, because I had succeeding in rousing his rage a pitch above his malignity. Pulling out the nerves with red-hot pincers requires more coolness than knocking on the head. He was worked up to forget the fiendish prudence he boasted of, and proceeding to murderous violence, I experienced pleasure in being able to exasperate him. The sense of pleasure woke my instinct of self-preservation, so I fairly broke free, and if ever I come into his hands again, he is welcome to a signal revenge. Yesterday, you know, Mr. Earnshaw should have been at the funeral. He kept himself sober for the purpose, tolerably sober, not going to bed mad at 6 o'clock and getting up drunk at 12. Consequently, he rose in suicidal low spirits, as fit for the church as for a dance, and instead he sat down by the fire and swallowed gin or brandy by tumblerfuls. Heathcliff, I shudder to name him, has been a stranger in the house from last Sunday till today. Whether the angels have fed him, or his kin beneath, I cannot tell, but he has not eaten a meal with us for nearly a week. He has just come home at dawn and gone upstairs to his chamber, locking himself in as if anybody dreamt of coveting his company. There he has continued, praying like a Methodist, only the deity he implored is senseless dust and ashes. And God, when addressed, was curiously confounded with his own black father. Meaning, talking about Satan, but also this is very racialized language. And associating race with this, like, white superiority. Okay. After concluding these precious orisons, which is another word for prayers, they lasted generally till he grew hoarse, and his voice was strangled in his throat. He would be off again, always straight down to the Grange. I wonder Edgar did not send for a constable and give him into custody. For me, grieved as I was about Catherine, it was impossible to avoid regarding this season of deliverance from degrading oppression as a holiday. I recovered spirit sufficient to hear Joseph's eternal lectures without weeping, and to move up and move down the house, less with the foot of a frightened thief than formerly. You wouldn't think that I should cry at anything Joseph could say, but he and Hareton are detestable companions. I'd rather sit with Hindley and hear his awful talk than with to little Maester and his staunch supporter, that odious old man. So she also is very resentful of being lowered in class in being married to Heathcliff. When Heathcliff is in, I'm obliged to seek the kitchen and their society, or starve among the damp, uninhabited chambers. When he is not, as was the case this week, I establish a table and chair at one corner of the house fire, and never mind how Mr. Earnshaw may occupy himself, and does not interfere with my arrangements. He is quieter now than he used to be, if no one provokes him, more sullen and depressed, and less furious. Joseph affirms he's sure he's an altered man, that the Lord has touched his heart, and he is saved so as by fire. I'm puzzled to detect the signs of favorable change, but it is not my business. Another footnote. So as by fire is in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 15, which reads, If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. Yester evening, I sat in my nook reading some old books till late on towards 12. It seemed so dismal to go upstairs, with the wild snow blowing outside, and my thoughts continually reverting to the kirkyard and the new-made grave. I dared hardly lift my eyes from the page before me, that melancholy scene so instantly usurped its place. Hindley sat opposite, his head leant on his hands, perhaps meditating on the same subject. He had ceased drinking at a point below irrationality, and had neither stirred nor spoken during 2 or 3 hours. There was no sound through the house, but the moaning wind which shook the windows every now and then, the faint crackling of the coals, and the click of my snuffers as I removed at intervals the long wick of the candle. Hareton and Joseph were probably fast asleep in bed. It was very, very sad, and while I read, I sighed, for it seemed as if all joy had vanished from the world, never to be restored. Very Gothic. The doleful silence was broken, at length, by the sound of the kitchen latch. Heathcliff had returned from his watch earlier than usual, owing, I suppose, to the sudden storm. So, talking about, symbolism as well, with Isabella entering in at the beginning of this chapter where she's going through the storm. The storm in a lot of Gothic literature represents the sublime of this higher existence of being when you are at one with nature that makes it feel like life is much larger than yourself. And so it also is this element of baptism where she is leaving this situation, starting a new life. And she is having this coincide with this experience of being in nature very fully, with the pain of it, with her being cut by it, being immersed in it, being soaking wet when she gets in, that she is essentially being submersed in the sublime and is seeming to come out with a little more enlightenment. But we will see as this story proceeds and how she acts after, what consequences there are to this. The doleful silence was broken at length by the sound of the kitchen latch. Heathcliff had returned from his watch earlier than usual, owing, I suppose, to the sudden storm. That entrance was fastened, and we heard him coming round to get in by the other. I rose with an irrepressible expression of what I felt on my lips, which induced my companion, who had been staring towards the door, to look at me. I'll keep him out 5 minutes, he exclaimed. You won't object? No, you may keep him out the whole night for me, I answered. Do put the key in the lock and draw the bolts. Earnshaw accomplished this ere his guest reached the front. He then came and brought his chair to the other side of my table, leaning over it, and searching in my eyes a sympathy with the burning hate that gleamed from his, as he both looked and felt like an assassin. He couldn't exactly find that, but he discovered enough to encourage him to speak. Bunny! Hear a kit meowing. Yeah, this is a long chapter. Okay. You and I, he said, have each a great debt to settle with the man out yonder. If we were neither of us cowards, we might combine to discharge it. Are you as soft as your brother? Are you willing to endure the last, and not once attempt a repayment? I am weary of enduring now, I replied, and I'd be glad of a retaliation that wouldn't recoil on myself. But treachery and violence are spears pointed at both ends. They wound those who resort to them worse than their enemies. Treachery and violence are just a return for treachery and violence, cried Hindley. Mrs. Heathcliff, I'll ask you to do nothing but sit still and be dumb. Tell me now, can you? I'm sure you would have as much pleasure as I in witnessing the conclusion of the fiend's existence. He'll be your death unless you overreach him, and he'll be my ruin. Damn the hellish villain. He knocks at the door as if he were master here already. Doesn't he own the place? Or maybe he doesn't. Promise. It's like he's just trying to be inside, okay? It's not his fault that Hindley is drinking all the time and is not actually running the household. Promise to hold your tongue, and before that clock strikes, it wants 3 minutes of 1, you're a free woman. He took the implements of which I described to you in my letter from his breast, and would have turned down the candle. I snatched it away, however, and seized his arm. I'll not hold my tongue, I said. You mustn't touch him. Let the door remain shut and be quiet. No, I form my resolution, and by God I'll execute it, cried the desperate being. I'll do you a kindness in spite of yourself, inherit injustice, and you needn't trouble your head to screen me. Catherine is gone. Oh, hello. Juniper just dashed in. Hi. Okay. Nobody alive would regret me or be ashamed, though I cut my throat this minute, and it's time to make an end. I might as well have struggled with a bear or reasoned with a lunatic. The only resource left me was to run a lattice and warn his intended victim of the fate which awaited him. You'd better seek shelter somewhere else tonight, I exclaimed in a rather triumphant tone. Mr. Earnshaw has a mind to shoot you, if you persist in endeavoring to enter. You'd better open the door, he answered, addressing me by some elegant term that I don't care to repeat. I shall not meddle in the matter, I retorted again. Come in and get shot, if you please. I've done my duty. With that, I shut the window and returned to my place by the fire, having too small a stock of hypocrisy at my command to pretend any anxiety for the danger that menaced him. Earnshaw swore passionately at me, affirming that I loved the villain yet, and calling me all sorts of names for the base spirit I evinced. And I, in my secret heart, and conscience never reproached me, thought what a blessing it would be for him should Heathcliff put him out of misery, and what a blessing for me should he send Heathcliff to his right abode. Okay, I'm gonna attempt to turn this page. Oh boy. We'll see. Does this mean we have to stop here? If I can't turn the page with my glove? Here. Let's do this. Alright. As I sat nursing these reflections, the casement behind me was banged onto the floor by a blow from the latter individual, and his black countenance looked blightingly through. So it's saying... So this is Heathcliff. Also, again, the racialized language. The stanchions stood too close to suffer his shoulders to follow, and I smiled, exulting in my fancied security. His hair and clothes were whitened with snow, and his sharp cannibal teeth, revealed by cold and wrath. Cannibal? Jesus Christ. There's no evidence of this, but okay. And gleamed through the dark. Isabella, let me in, or I'll make you repent. He gurned, as Joseph called it. I cannot commit a murder, I replied. Mr. Hindley stands sentinel with a knife and loaded pistol. Let me in by the kitchen door, he said. Hindley will be there before me, I answered, and that's a poor love of yours that cannot bear a shower of snow. We were left at peace in our beds as long as the summer moon shone, but the moment a blast of winter returns, you must return for shelter. Heathcliff, if I were you, I'd go stretch myself over her grave and die like a faithful dog. The world is surely not worth living in now, is it? Yes? Hey. You had distinctly impressed on me the idea that Catherine was the whole joy of your life. I can't imagine how you think of surviving her loss. Okay. I think I'm going to end it there. I know we're in the middle of this. How much longer is this? Oh, this is long. Okay. I'm glad we at least got a little bit through some of this. Alright, that will be it for now. Isabella running away, retelling story of what happened. Okay, that's gonna be it for me today. But thank you for being here. Just as a heads up, I have been posting VODs to YouTube. However, with all of the copyright nonsense involved with YouTube, not all of them are able to be up, the full videos. So there are some days missing, if you happen to go there and observe. I have all of the streams up for the past week or so on Patreon. So you can view all of them on Patreon for free, if you would like. So, anyway, I hope you have a good rest of your evening, good rest of your day. Thank you for being here. I will see you soon. Okay, bye.